Discover card. What Discover do? Hey, tea sippers. I don't know why today feel like Sunday. Whew. Let's recap. Let's talk about what happened this past week. How we doing? What time is it? 2:23. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. How we feeling, tea sippers? Come on in, come on in. How we feeling, tea sippers? Please come in, hitting the like button. Like, share, subscribe, join the membership, support the platform. Hey, tea sippers. Ooh, I've been moving slow. I was just talking to my sister. Baby, I need to know, did I take my vitamins today? Or what? Tea sippers. I don't know if that pardon possibility rattled my nerves. I don't know. I don't know if it was the Diddy them maybe congratulating too soon, or you know, they got them a good one. They got them a good one yesterday. They got them a good one. But was it smart? Was it wise? And it ain't no different. It's fascinating to me why people was celebrating and then why they was getting upset. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, she ain't say nothing no different than what the other ones done said. Only difference is there is a difference. Because in all fairness, she ain't said no different than the rest of them. Cassie, that guy, last name James or something, I don't know. Hey, Kathy. Hey. Him, Capricorn, you know. Hell, even Kid Cudi. After he done that stupid stuff, well, he didn't actually assault Cudi. But hell, he chased him, tried to blow up his car, went in his house, and hell, even after then, Cudi talked to him. I wouldn't have talked to him. He wouldn't ever been able to talk to me. And I mean that. What? Talk to me, how you gonna pay me? How you gonna replace my car? If you ain't talking business, we ain't got nothing to talk about. We ain't finna talk about who I'm sleeping with, how long I've been sleeping with them, none of that. Nigga, you finna replace my car because they say I can't fix it. That's all him and Cudi should have talked about. But even Capricorn, hell, she talked to him. She went back. She butted up to him. So what really is the difference than what Mia did? There's a couple of things different. There's some more things. Well, hell, Don too. Every one of them. There's some things that went on that Don didn't talk about. There's some things that went on with Capricorn that's deeper than what she talked about. And there's some things But Mia go back on the stand Monday. They not finished with her. And if she's smart, if the prosecutors are smart, they'll go ahead and bring up what happened. They done already embarrassed her. You know what I mean? But only thing that I could see different from Mia came in all meek and mild. Can't say her real name, you know. Can't show her face. Can't sketch her face, you know. Head down. Won't look at nobody. That's the only thing she did different. That's the only thing she did different, because everybody else done talked to him, high-fived him, you know. Still stroked his ugly little ego, you know. Every last one of them done that. But the only difference that I can see is that the way she came in, the special security, you know, all of that. And when he said, "You weak, ain't you? We done went through all of this special ops and shit." Don't say her name like her name wasn't gonna leak. Hell, it came to me. So if it came to me, I'm sure it went out to some other people. And I don't know how you didn't know where you gave them your real name. They saw your real name. They know who you are. But they said somebody sent them a video. Somebody sent them. So that means, because surely if you top secret, you know, don't nobody supposed to know who you are for whatever reason, surely you blocked, you privated all your social media, right? Right? So before anybody knew who you were, before you went on that stand, right? You blocked it, right? So how did they know to send that? To Diddy's defense team? Or Diddy was smart enough to record something from everybody who he know he done some dirty shit to? I don't know. But if I got your name to look you up, I know other people knew who you were. But anyway, somebody sent that to them because they didn't have it. So again, I'm going to say this. The only difference in her and some of them other ones who still entertained Diddy after they have been, you know, SA'd, is that the way she came in, all Secret Service. And I'm going to say this. They called you weak because you didn't bring up what you should have brought up. If you are the one that he attacked in the UK, out the country, attacked her, jumped her, beat her up, and then sicked his partners, allowed them to have a, you know, a one-on-one with you, back to back. And the next morning or so, when folk was asking, where you at? And he said, up that itch. I don't give a up. If you or her and you didn't bring that up, that's why they called you weak. I'm just keeping it real with you. Because I'm steady saying, everybody talking about the nail in the coffin. It's already out there. Hell, if I saw it, other people saw it. So if your Secret Service, shh, don't show her face. Cause come on, y'all, let's be realistic. Can we keep it real? For them to go to those extremes, her trauma has to be worse than anybody's, right? Am I tripping? Right? Other people done moved on, right? Right? Don't nobody want to be reminded of a past like that unless they still in that type of stuff, right? So you go to those measures. You go through those measures when there is something really, really crucial. The trauma is really, really bad. Unlivable. And they said that something happened at some point that you wanted to take your life, right? So for you not to come out with it is why they called you weak. Now, they may have done that to make you react and say, I'm not weak. He did this, this, that, and the other. And he allowed his boys to do this, this, that, and the other. I don't know. But reckon they know now you should have said something about that since you was all secret, special agent, extra security outside. I mean, why? Because there a possibility you could name other people, some co-conspirators who was a part of that attack. Why else would you need more security? Wipe your face off. Don't say the name. You don't want to look up. You don't want to make eye contact to nobody, not even women. What? Okay. So you come back, little girl, lady. When you come back Monday, you may want to put all that shit out there. Because folk know who you are. You can believe that. Because somebody sent them a video that they wanted to let the judge allow them to play it. Now, I don't know if Diddy trying to out you. That may very well be. Okay? Because he petty and trifling like that. Okay? And somebody was saying, AunTeaFee, now you know that video gonna leak out this weekend. And it may, is that what I've been waiting on? I don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm just saying. You may want to go and put it on out there. Because it's coming, baby. It's coming. And that's why they called you weak. Now, you weak. You know. Preston already tried to make me make me admit that you weak, and I'm still trying to say you traumatized. Precious. But you came in our Secret Service like you had a bombshell. And you didn't have a bombshell. They showed that you was fanned out. And I'm not saying that the other ones wasn't fanned out, but the other ones didn't come in all Secret Service. I started to put my dark shades on, you know, put on the black trench coat and stuff. That's what you should have did. You should have had your mask on. You know, they say it's another strand coming. You should have came all COVID-19 up. You know what I'm saying? Where couldn't nobody see nothing but your eyes. That's what you should have did. But listen to AunTeaFee. Go and tell your story. Because until you talk about it, you ain't going to be able to heal properly anyway. And you don't want them to release that info. It's already out there because I saw it, right? Okay, that's just my opinion to that. That's all I have to say about that until Monday. But really, the way that, you know, it was just a guy who attacked her. And should he have attacked like that, being a man? And I know old girl saying that the witness people, and, you know, they was rolling their eyes at him. But that don't mean nothing. Hell, I was rolling my eyes at him. I rolled my eyes at all of them who turn around and start back fooling with him. Why? I wouldn't. So let's talk about Trump before I start playing it. I don't know how I feel about that. Trump says something that caught my attention. And hopefully he'll let Diddy go on and get his day in court, and for him to allow him to go away. How about that? Get his real justice. If he didn't pardon R. Kelly, and he shouldn't pardon Diddy. Now, he did say that they used to be cool back in the day. But that was back in the day when he was sticking his hands in people's private area. Right? What he told Billy to do on Entertainment Tonight? Just go on in there while they looking at you and stick, you know. Yeah. So they was cool back then. When they, yeah. So he said he used to really like me until I started into politics. And then he said something else. But if I was still something, that part, we gon' listen to that. Because that part right there is what spoke volumes to me. And that part right there is the part he needs to remember so that he won't get pulled off into some stuff back then. They already looking at you, sir. Right? You know, Epstein, Weinstein, whatever, Bergdorf, whatever, Fitch, what's that other guy name? All of that. So you may want to say it's time to stop. That's why I chose that picture with the stop. It's time to stop. Triple X trafficking, racketeering, child. Now I know you don't need to. What? What? You don't pull your daughter and son-in-law and son off into some stuff. So I'm saying, you know, I think you better think about it long and hard. Now I know it's a lot of y'all and a lot of y'all friends and don't know what he gonna expose and who he gonna tell on. I just think right now, all of a sudden, Suge Knight, Ray J, you know, they telling on each other one hand and trying to protect on the other. It's almost now as if a Suge Knight was asking on the cool for you to jump in there and say this shit. Cause shortly after he started saying it, somebody asked you, and then you said, well, I'm sure some people who wanted to ask me, but they ain't asked me yet. Because he ain't being mistreated at all. Ain't nobody lying on him. You let him in the Trump Tower. You let him get away with a bunch of stuff in there. And you ain't say nothing about it. Don't let him pull you off into his shit. Because he gonna flip it. And hell, the next thing you know, he gonna be trying to run for president. Take your spot. Because now he know that felons and crookedness can be in the White House. That's how you have to look at Diddy. That's how you got to look at him. He'll flip this shit around. You trying to help him. That's that Jay-Z Diddy shit. You know, they use you. You help them. Then they get your position. They move the middleman out the way. And then they take over your spot. See? And then they'll turn around and let somebody prosecute you. Yeah. Then it'll be Diddy Towers. Yeah, that's what, if y'all let him out, y'all know these are type of routes that this narcissistic man is going to go. I'm just putting it out there first. So let's listen. Whew, Lord. Let's listen to what they say first.
Pardons. It's the most frustrating part of executive power to me. I don't know why we gave king-like powers to a president, but one of the people he just pardoned is one of his biggest fans, reality star Todd Chrisley. And I hear Stephen A. Smith is a big fan of his as well. That was a surprise to me. Dusty just told me. What would it mean if he would?
Thank you, exclusive news TV. Y'all support my partner.
Stephen A. Smith, right now. You don't like talk of Diddy pardons. Why?
Thank you.
Well, listen, I don't like talk of it. It's an echo on my I'm sorry, but here's the deal. When you look at the Diddy situation, yes, he's been accused of sex trafficking.
It's the most frustrating part of it.
Look at the facts.
I love that. Whether or not Diddy liked him is a big part of the calculus. At least he's telling you how it actually worked.
You mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, so I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts.
I love that. Whether or not Diddy liked him is a big part of the calculus. At least he's telling you how it actually works, all right? Now, Trump did just hand out a bunch of new pardons. It's the most frustrating part of executive power to me. I don't know why we gave king-like powers to a president, but one of the people he just pardoned is one of his biggest fans, reality star Todd Chrisley. And I hear Stephen A. Smith is a big fan of his as well. That was a surprise to me. Dusty just told me. What would it mean if he would have pardoned Diddy? Should we even care? Let's bring in the man, Stephen A. Smith, right now. You don't like talk of Diddy pardons. Why?
Well, listen, I don't like talk of it. It's an echo on my I'm sorry, but here's the deal. When you look at the Diddy situation, yes, he's been accused of sex trafficking. He's been accused of, sex trafficking, obviously, racketeering. We still need to see the courts bear it out. But what has been obvious from the jump is that there's been a lot of domestic violence going on.
Facts.
You're hearing lurid details, grotesque details about what has transpired, what he has instigated, what he has initiated, the violence that he was caught on video perpetrating against Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend.
Right.
Seeing all of that, hearing the testimony, hearing others confirm not only what they saw, but that they experienced it themselves. And with the case still expected to go on for a little, an additional 4 weeks, it's surprised to hear the President of the United States talking about how it's something he'd leave the door open to. That's his right. He's the President of the United States. But in the end, when you hear this kind of stuff going on and you hear that from the President of the United States, who should have much bigger things to be focused on,
Right.
It's kind of surprising in most situations that he would consider that. But when it comes to Donald Trump, we shouldn't be surprised.
This would not be the first man with ugly allegations attached to him that the president embraced. Now, I don't see your take on that as controversial, but what I think is highly controversial is what you believe may be coming President Trump's way in the avenue of support. Tell the audience what you think may be happening right now in this country.
In terms of him attracting himself to additional black voters. Well, people are looking at him and they're saying, listen, we're not feeling the Democrats right now. It's just that simple. You know, you feel taken for granted. You feel like, you know, they've taken the black community for granted for quite a long time. You've got young voters that are not looking at them in the same light. They're not thinking about them in that regard. And then when you consider the fact that they don't seem to have a plan other than to go against anything that is Trump, it seems problematic because people are looking at you and saying, who's your voice? What's your vision? What plan of action do you have to steer this country in the right direction? You might talk about jobs being lost and what have you, and we're not here to disagree with that. But the flip side to it is that how do we get $37 trillion, in a deficit? How is it that there's problems with Medicare? How is it that there are problems in this country when you've had enough stewardship over this government? Not every administration, of course, because W. Bush was in there. H.W. was years before that, before Clinton came along. Obviously, he was there. Obama came afterwards. But they've all been in on it. And so you get to a point where you say, no matter where we turn, who's the folks to look at and to say and to feel positively that they're going to be in the right direction? If I'm stuttering a little bit, it's because the echo never left my ear. I'm hearing my stuff over my ear. I apologize.
First of all, what's better than hearing you, Stephen A? It's twice as nice. It's twice as nice when you hear yourself.
But okay.
I know. That's called the mix minus. Welcome to News Nation. I have that happening all the time. Sometimes it's like 4 or 5 seconds delayed.
Yes.
So
Gotcha.
let me ask you this. I want to bring up one more thing that people can go and watch on the Stephen A. Smith show that you just did. I thought it was really interesting. You actually developed an angle on the journalists who wrote about the Biden cover-up in the original Sin book that I hadn't even thought of. It was really interesting along these lines of, you really believe that people who were offended by how Biden was covered are going to trust the people who are doing the job to tell them that they were right all along? And it was interesting. I guess I'm too close to it because I'm in the media. But when you interviewed these two guys, I thought it was really interesting how you were an advocate for regular people's interests who were like, what is this revelation to you? We all knew it. You were hiding from the truth. And I thought it was interesting how you confronted them with that in a civil way. But it was clear that they were not getting it the way you were laying it down.
Well, listen, here's the deal. I'm taking it out of my ear a little bit so I don't have to hear myself. Jake Tapper, I'm not here to judge him. I'm not here. He works for CNN and he does the job that he does covering politics. I've only met him a couple of times. When he's interviewed me, I interviewed him a couple of days ago for the first time, and he's got a best-selling book out. God bless him and Alex Thompson. But the reality is that I saw it a couple of years ago, Biden wasn't going to make it to the Democratic National Convention. And based on their report, there were an abundance of people, not just within the administration, not just within the White House, but within the Democratic Party who were fully aware of his debilitating condition as well. And they did absolutely nothing. Now, for me, I look at a guy like Trump, who they have sworn has been an existential threat to democracy. Well, how much of a threat are you if you're willing to circumvent our democratic process just to ensure that your guy maintains his time in office and we keep that individual out? Who are you? What kind of moral ground could you possibly stand on if you're willing to take that kind of position? That, to me, was what the appeal from this book. So many people have been focused on Jake Tapper and what he did or didn't do leading up to the election and how he's coming on in the aftermath and he's saying, hey, well, look at what I've discovered. I interviewed almost 200 people. All of them were Democrats or what have you. And here's what we've learned. I'm like, forget all that. Forget Jake Tapper. Forget Alex Thompson. I don't mean that disrespectfully. The focus should be, who the hell was it in the White House and who the hell was it within our government that knew Biden was debilitated to that degree and did nothing and said nothing and was pushing for 4 more years? I'm not one of those people, Chris, that felt like once Biden announced, guess what? He should leave office immediately, that he was so gone, so incapacitated, he didn't have all his faculties and all. I don't believe that for 1 second. What I'm saying is, if you knew he was debilitated, what I'm looking at was y'all in the state capitol chanting 4 more years when he was giving his State of the Union address. I'm looking at you pushing him to be in office from the time he was 82 until he was going to be 86 years old. I'm looking at you pushing for him to be in office in 2024. What are you trying to say? What you were really, really hoping is that the man wins the election and then whatever happens to him and Kamala Harris could be in as the president. Oh, well, if that's what you were wishing, what you're saying is you didn't have faith that she could run on her own and win a primary like she couldn't do in 2020. Yeah. And so if that's the reality, you're basically guilty of everything you've accused the Republicans of doing, which means I don't want to hear a damn thing they have to say, because that's inexcusable. If you're going to be up and try to stand on some moral high ground, then have morals. Have principles, because that's what you say in the other side act, but you didn't do it yourself. I want to know who the hell knew. I want to know how much they knew. If they were an elected official, if they were a part of the administration, I think they should be banned from public office for life.
Well, I think if he pardoned,
but I like it. It would be a good message.
Diddy, he needs to be barred from
all these
office for
parties
life.
are about is advantage. That's their principle. They're not about anything but that. So here is our dinner bet. The Knicks win tomorrow night, and they win by at least 7.
I could see that. There's no dinner bet there. I got them winning.
They don't move from.
It's emotion more than basketball sense, but I'm still picking them to win Game 6 and force Game 7.
Did they just switch gears on me?
They're going to win that one too, Stephen A.
Did
and I'm going to see you down there.
By the way, you owe me dinner anyway. You being
they
slick. You owe me
gears,
dinner anyway, so next time you're paying. What is this?
Oh, listen.
Just take
I think I'm probably going to pay for the rest of my life. I owe you so much. You've done nothing but been good to me. I'll pay for you, and I've seen how you eat. You're a cheap date. Stephen A. Smith, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Let's go to the next one, y'all.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe.
I think he had another
News
one.
Nation app right now.
Let's go and go to this
Welcome
one.
back. Now let's get to the latest in the federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial against Sean Diddy Combs. Testimony resumed this morning from a former assistant using the pseudonym Mia. This is her second day of testimony where Mia said Combs physically and sexually assaulted her numerous times when she worked for him.
Shout out to
Mia
Stephen
says
A.
that she also
Smith.
felt trapped with no safe way to report the abuse she suffered. The former assistant testified she was suspended several times from her job for different reasons, including accidentally falling asleep after being awake for days and reacting to one of Combs' violent episodes. The jury saw an email Mia received from Human Resources following the incident that noted she was suspended without pay for 5 days. Mia testified she was told her suspension was because Combs said she was being insubordinate. Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges that include racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. If convicted on all counts, he could face up to life
They
in
on
prison.
some more than
Joining me now
the
to
D.
discuss this and other elements of the
OPE.
trial this week is Ryan Smith, contributor to the show legal analyst extraordinaire for ABC Sports Center anchor as well. What's up? Welcome back to the show, Ryan. How are you, man? How's everything?
Good to
Damn,
see you,
more than
Stephen.
that.
How you doing, man?
Oh man, this case is crazy, man. I'm doing well, but I'm doing a hell of a lot better than Diddy. Let's get that out the way. And definitely a hell of a lot better than him. I want to pick up from where I just left off. What's the significance of Mia's testimony this morning?
It's huge, not only from the perspective that she talks about how she was sexually assaulted by Diddy, which is a big part of the prosecution's case, but it's also part of their racketeering case. Part of what they're trying to prove is a forced labor element of his racketeering case, essentially saying he had people like Mia working for days in a row under force of threats or coercion. What threats? There's threats that she has over text message of communications where he's saying, I'm going to tell everything. Things like sexual assault that she experienced in her mind that might be told to Cassie and others that might hurt her. So what they're trying to put together through Mia's testimony is a couple of different things. First is that there was an element of forced labor going on under Diddy, where people felt like they had to do things that were extreme under force of like threat or violence. She talks about how he threw a computer at her, threw spaghetti at her. That concern led her to be in this forced labor situation.
Yeah,
She's
and if
also
he
there
had
to
spaghetti, then
corroborate
why
elements
she
of
have to go to
Cassie's story.
IHOP?
Cassie talking about the sexual assault she went through, and now Mia talking about what she experienced as part of the overall case of Diddy having this criminal enterprise, having all these people working for him, planning certain things, doing certain things to cover up the crimes they believe he was committing.
So what else stood out to you in court this week? I mean, that seems like more than enough. Was there anything else that stood out to you over the last few days?
Clark's testimony, that was huge. I mean, this woman talking about everything she went through working for him, working with him, that contributed to the elements of kidnapping and arson. Because you talk about Kid Cudi, that whole situation. We talked about this last week, Stephen A. The idea that Kid Cudi feels that he tried to bomb his Porsche. That's the arson part. So she's talking about all the different relationships that Cassie had with Kid Cudi, how Diddy found out, and the reactions he had, coming to her house with a gun, forcing her to go one place. That's part of the forced coercion and all of this. And then doing these things like breaking into Kid Cudi's house. She talks about everything that happened there, and that she's then assigned to go and tell him not to talk to the police. All of this works into this criminal enterprise they're starting to talk about here. This idea that he owned or operated and associated this enterprise of doing crimes and had all these people doing things to help facilitate that. When we talked last week, we talked about, hey, where is all of this going? Now we're starting to see, Stephen A., where all this is going. It's not just about the accusations of sexual assault, the accusations of being a bad boss, the accusations of doing things, of threatening violence. It's the fact for prosecutors that he is doing all of these things to sort of facilitate criminal activity, and then on the other end, involving all these people to do these things for him, to either conceal it or to keep it going, and then doing it under force of threats or coercion, saying to people like Mia, hey, you do, or the insinuation is, hey, you don't do this for me, I'm gonna tell everything about what happened with you and me. You do selling somebody else. You don't come with me, I've got a gun, you gotta come with me, even if you don't want to. This is the prosecution starting to lay out that most powerful case on racketeering. That's what they need to get the maximum time in jail.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox, cool.
Maximum time in jail.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, because obviously when we've had you on covering this for us, and we really, really appreciate it. You made a point to say,
Carl,
basically, be patient, just wait. They're just starting to make their case. You know, when you're talking about him and his behavior, domestic violence, that's not sex trafficking, that's not racketeering. They're laying the groundwork for their case. You kept emphasizing that. Right now, how are you feeling about what the government is doing and how they're doing in presenting this case against Diddy? What kind of a grade would you give them right now?
Give them B+ to A-, maybe even A. And here's why.
Whoa.
They have their ducks in a row and they have their information set. And their witnesses, from what we're seeing in court, are testifying very.
Because obviously when we've...
Hey, where is all of this going? Now we're starting to see, Stephen A., where all this is going. It's not just about the accusations of sexual assault, the accusations of being a bad boss, the accusations of doing things, of threatening violence. It's the fact for prosecutors that he is doing all of these things to sort of facilitate criminal activity, and then on the other end, involving all these people to do these things for him, to either conceal it or to keep it going, and then doing it under force of threats or coercion, saying to people like Mia, hey, You do, or the insinuation is, hey, you don't do this for me, I'm gonna tell everything about what happened with you and me. You do selling somebody else. You don't come with me, I've got a gun, you gotta come with me even if you don't want to. This is the prosecution starting to lay out that most powerful case on racketeering. That's what they need to get the maximum time in jail.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because obviously when we've had you on covering this for us, and we really, really appreciate it. You made a point to say, basically, be patient, just wait. They're just starting to make their case. You know, when you're talking about him and his behavior, domestic violence, that's not sex trafficking, that's not racketeering. They're laying the groundwork for their case. You kept emphasizing that. Right now, how are you feeling about what the government is doing and how they're doing in presenting this case against Diddy? What kind of a grade would you give them right now?
I'd give them B+ to A-, maybe even A. And here's why.
Oh, A.
They have their ducks in a row and they have their information set. And their witnesses, from what we're seeing in court, are testifying very, very well. What do I mean by that? Well, the groundwork part of it, like you talk about, when we first started talking about this, you asked me how long this case would last. I said 6 to 8 weeks. Now they're even saying it could go 5 weeks. So this case is picking up steam. The prosecution is not only efficiently presenting their case, because Stephen, you got to think about this as like people are sitting in that courtroom every day for hours hearing this stuff. If it drags on and on and on and prosecution can't be very efficient with their points, you start losing jurors. They're going fast, they're going smoothly, and they're getting out information very quickly and very precisely. That's helpful for the jury. Not only that, cross-examination becomes huge here because these people are getting pressed back. Let's say, for example, Mia and Capricorn.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, they're getting pressed back on their social media posts. All these things they posted with Diddy. These witnesses are prepared, though. They're talking about, hey, I posted this on this day, yes, but it didn't mean I didn't feel this way at the time. They're talking about, with Capricorn Clark, they tried to press her on the fact of, did he have a gun? Yes, he had a gun. I had to go with him because he had a gun. That's witness preparation right there. You don't want that witness getting up there hemming and hawing, opening up other lines of questioning. Now, the defense is doing what they can do. But what the speed of this case and the witness testimony I'm reading is showing me are prosecuting witnesses that are very well prepared and a prosecution team that is slowly and methodically, but efficiently building that case for RICO. It's not an easy thing to do. And from what I'm seeing so far, reading, because we're not able to see it on TV, what I'm reading so far, they seem to be doing a very good job.
Well, we're just reading. You're not just reading. You're in the legal profession. You got sources all over the place. I know you. Look at the Ryan Smith. I mean, how is the? Tell us how the legal profession feels the defense is doing in light of how good the prosecution looks right now. What are you hearing about what the legal system? I'm talking about your colleagues, your contemporaries, lawyers. What do they feel about how the defense is doing?
And lawyers I know and people I talk to, they think the defense had an uphill case to begin with. I mean, this is a very
They think the what? What did he say?
You and I have talked about this before. This prosecution office, one of the best.
How is the? Tell us how the legal profession feels the defense is doing in light of how good the prosecution looks right now. What are you hearing about what the legal system? I'm talking about your colleagues, your contemporaries, lawyers. What do they feel about how the defense is doing?
And lawyers I know and people I talk to, they think the defense had an uphill case to begin with. I mean, this is a tough case to be.
They don't
Stephen, you and I have talked about this before. This prosecution office, one of the best in the world. I mean, this is top notch, best.
I tried to tell people the other day that the attorneys and lawyers were saying, no, they know that they can't beat this case for Diddy. They already know that. That's why, I'm not saying that's why. There's a good chance on why they letting him be fifth chair. However many chair, and sit there and do them sticky notes and try to tell them, no, don't ask this, and yeah, you know, they cannot. Hell, they didn't have a chance in the first place because the evidence was stacked against them. And then on top of that, you won't let them do their job. And it's almost impossible anyway with the evidence. So I knew, that's why I was like, what did he say? What? Because I know that they done already been talking about, hell, they can end today, really. But I'm sure it's more they want to put out there against Diddy because he's arrogant like that. He's a narcissist like that. And hell, he may be patting himself on the chest. Could nobody do it like me? Can't stop, won't stop, you know? But let's keep listening. That's why Trump can't pardon him. Cause see, he will continue to do it all over again. And then he'll call Trump weak.
Tell us how the legal profession feels the defense is doing in light of how good the prosecution looks right now. What are you hearing about what the legal system, I'm talking about your colleagues, your contemporaries, lawyers, what do they feel about how the defense is doing?
Hey, lawyers I know and people I talk to, they think the defense had
Hold on. Now you talking about now that you can talk. Hold on. Did you come in speaking? Did you come in speaking? Talking about now that I can talk. Are you trying to be sarcastic? Before I even read it, hold up. Are you trying to be sarcastic? You talking about now that I can talk, danger? Did you speak coming in? Since you're a guest and you're not a subscriber, I mean, did you speak? Oh, you did. You did say hi, first of all. Okay. Hello. Okay, I thought you was going to come in here and check me without speaking to me. I'm sorry.
You and I have talked about this before. This prosecution office, one of the best in the world. I mean, this is
I'm
top-notch,
sorry,
best lawyers you can
Danger,
get. That's number one.
Bear,
So you're fighting a
Wolf,
really good
Turtle.
lawyer on the other side. The second thing is, Diddy has a lot of bad facts against him. He's got lots of people coming forward talking about sexual assault and abuse. He's got a lot of people talking about the systems, how things ran, how he used threats and coercion to get them to do certain things. This is the RICO case. So they've got so much going against them. How are they doing? From people I talk to, the defense is doing well because you play the hand that you have. That's the key with defense. I think sometimes people think, well, defense lawyers are going to come out and have this smoking gun that nobody saw coming. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen because there's so many bad facts.
I apologize. I didn't mean to ask how the lawyers, your contemporaries, feel the defense is doing in terms of, are they doing a good job or are they not? I meant to ask, are they confident they're going to be able to get this man off? That's what I'm asking, to win this case. Because you can have lawyers, you can have lawyers saying, I think they're doing good based on the hand they're dealt. They're doing an excellent job. I'm asking, are their chances improving or dissipating towards getting them off?
You're asking me what I think, or you're asking what they would tell you if they were being honest?
I'm asking you and your contemporaries, what do y'all peel from what y'all have read, what y'all have heard? What's the scuttlebutt in your profession about how it's looking for Diddy?
Getting worse and worse by the day. Getting worse and worse by the day. And every bit
reading.
of testimony
What I
I hear,
missed.
it's getting
Let me
harder and
take
harder
this
for me
out
to
my
get off.
ear.
I think
It's getting harder and harder.
Contemporary lawyers, what do they feel about how the defense
I'm
is
paying
doing?
attention now, y'all.
Hey, lawyers I know and people I talk to, they think the defense had an uphill case to begin with. I mean, this is a very tough
They had an
case to beat.
uphill
Stephen,
case.
you and I have talked about this before. This prosecution office, one of the best in the world. I mean, this is top-notch, best lawyers you can get. That's number one. So you're fighting a really good lawyer on the other side. The second thing is, Diddy has a lot of bad facts against him.
Facts.
He's got lots of people coming forward talking about sexual assault and abuse. He's got a lot of people talking about the systems, how things ran, how he used threats and coercion to get them to do certain things. This is the RICO case. So they've got so much going against them. How are they doing? From people I talk to, the defense is doing well because you play the hand that you have.
Absolutely.
That's the key with defense. I
But
think
they're not gonna
sometimes people
win.
think, well, defense lawyers are going to come out and have this smoking gun that nobody saw coming. That's not going to happen.
It's not
That's
gonna
not going to
happen.
happen
They
because there's so
don't-
many bad facts.
I apologize. I didn't mean to ask how the lawyers, your contemporaries, feel the defense is doing in terms of, are they doing a good job or are they not? I meant to ask, are they confident they're going to be able to get this man off?
No.
That's what I'm asking, to win this case. Because you can have lawyers, hold on. You can have lawyers saying, I think they're doing good based on the hand they're dealt. They're doing an excellent job. I'm asking, are their chances improving or dissipating towards getting them off?
You're asking me what I think, or you're asking what they would tell you if they were being honest?
I'm asking you and your contemporaries, what do y'all peel from what y'all have read, what y'all have heard? What's the scuttlebutt in your profession about how it's looking for Diddy?
Getting worse and worse by the day.
Yeah.
Getting worse and worse by the day. And every bit of testimony I hear, it's getting harder and harder for him to get off. I think his chances are well below 50% of beating these charges.
Slim to
you and I
none.
talked about this last week. Perhaps there is a way this jury looks at this, doesn't believe certain witnesses, and does what we call a compromise verdict. We're going to convict on some things that are lesser charges and maybe not on racketeering. That's perhaps something that might happen here. But I got to tell you, Stephen A., what I'm seeing here is this racketeering case being done very well. That's the main part of this case. When you have witnesses coming up and talking about he did this violence, he did that violence, we expected that. What I think is really interesting to me is how these witnesses are testifying that he would use that. I'm going to say this about you if you don't do this. I brought a gun, you're coming with me, you're going to do this with Kid Cudi, you're then going to talk to him and tell him not to talk to police. This is exactly what people say happens in RICO cases. And you got a jury who might be looking at it like, oh, RICO cases, I think, of mob cases. I think people have to understand, what do you think happens in those cases? It's a mob boss, allegedly, telling somebody else to do this, do that. I'm not getting my hands dirty. You're going to do all these things, and I'm directing. And Stephen A., there's another part of this that I think might resonate with this jury that I think we have to keep our eye on.
Well, they think what happened yesterday was a victory.
Young women coming forward talking about the forced labor, the violence perpetrated on them, the ways in which they were forced to do things at gunpoint, if you believe Capricorn Clark, if you talk about what Capricorn Clark talked about, the things that he would say about them. Will jurors
and
say,
a lot of
he's treating women like this? I mean, when we think about a mob case, we think different men trying to prove things to other men. I wonder if there will be a dynamic of this, of these young women, in Mia's case, somebody in their 20s trying to work in the music business and all of a sudden realizing they're in these situations.
Ryan, I appeared on Law and Order recently. I got killed. I got killed in the first 5 minutes. But it was on my bucket list because I'm a Law and Order fanatic. I always watch the show, right? And we often see
he got killed in the first 5 minutes
coming to the prosecution, looking to make a deal. Okay, and sometimes the prosecution accepts it because obviously you represent the state, and the quicker the case ends, the less money you have to spend, et cetera, et cetera. In real life, in the real world, what if Diddy's defense came and went to the prosecution and saying it's not looking pretty good for us, but you know what, we'd like to plead to a lesser charge. This prosecution, the Southern District of New York, they strike me as a bunch. They're going for blood. They want this man. They ain't trying to settle. They don't want a settlement. That's what I'm getting from this. To that you say what?
That ship has sailed.
That ship has sailed.
I think has sailed. Now look, Stephen A., I'm not a part of their office, so I can't say if somebody there might say, hey, here's what we don't know. We're in week 2, week 3 of this case. If something goes really wrong for the prosecution that's unexpected, that might change this dynamic. But if it keeps going the way it's going, I would say that ship sailed. That ship probably sailed not long after the raid, or not maybe a couple months after they started whispering things of charges. Because for him, the more he has been defiant, the more you put a prosecution in a place of, well, he's been saying for months, these are all lies. This isn't true. I didn't assault anybody. I didn't do any of this. And now the prosecution has to deal not only with their case, but the fact that in the public opinion, this case has taken on huge attention, and you don't want to be perceived as, I'm letting him off the hook, especially if you have a strong case. So in my opinion, that ship has sailed unless there is something that we don't know or something unexpected happens for the prosecution.
This is the pink salt recipe that took me from 198 to 147 in just weeks.
I tried to tell yesterday.
I kind of agree with you
that
because
them
I believe
attorneys
even if
already
they don't
know
do an exemplary job of proving sex trafficking and racketeering, I think they've made such a case for depicting him as a monster that you're going to have jurors that say, no, his ass going to jail. The hell with it. I'm going to say he's guilty for this too. I mean, I really feel like it can get that bad. But let me move on to this next question because I know you got to get you out of here. Suge Knight called in the CNN last night and said Combs should take the stand in his own defense. Combs actually did back in 2001, if you remember, when he testified in the Manhattan nightclub shooting that sent rapper
He want him to
Sean
tell
to
on
prison for
other
10 years.
people.
Combs was acquitted of all charges in that case.
He want
by the
him
way,
to
we gotta
Nino
mention
Brown.
that. But Ryan Smith, is it possible that he'll end up taking the stand in this trial? And should he, would you advise him to do so?
No, not at all.
No.
And I don't want to get on the wrong side of Suge now. That's number one.
Right.
But look,
No, neither do we. Neither do we.
but I tell you what,
His arrogance.
that is a last resort of last resorts. I know that people watch Law. Look, Stephen A., I'm a Law and Order fan too. I know people watch shows like that. They see people take the stand. Sometimes they see people jurors' minds being changed. Something comes out. Oh my God, I can't believe it. That is a rarity. This is something you do not want. The moment he takes the stand and opens his mouth, everything about his life is fair game, including stuff that they could not bring into court. Now he's opening his mouth. Let's ask him about those things that wouldn't have been admissible because he opened his mouth on them. Once he opens the door on some of that stuff.
So that means that the same thing that happened to Mia in the cross-examination is going to happen to Diddy if he sits his ass up on there and start running his mouth like we know he gonna do. Yeah. And he gonna open up more, and then they gonna get him. What did Boosie say on the back end? They gonna get him on his ass on the back end. But now Suge want him on the stand to expose some of the other people. He wants some other people in the industry who was a part of it. Hell, he maybe want him to bring up Jay-Z. I don't know who he want him to bring up, but Suge saying he ain't the only one. Now, I ain't saying that he ain't guilty of the stuff, of the charges. I'm just saying he needs to walk because he ain't the only one. Well, Suge, you wasn't the only one either. And your ass didn't walk. If your ass can go to jail, if Ira can go to jail, I mean, because y'all all was doing the same stuff. Okay? Exclusive, Suge Knight want all them. Exactly, exclusive. He want them all. That's just gonna have a jailhouse party, hip-hop party from behind the walls. Hip-hop party from behind the walls. That's what he want. That's why he want him to go up on that stand. You know, and on the cool, I kind of want him to go up there too. So it'll be a surefire, because he ain't gonna do nothing but tell on some folk. He can't say he didn't have the parties. He's notorious for it. Now you gonna say it's some other people who was doing it too, and it was done to me? Tell it. But it ain't gonna get you off. And that's just what that is. You going to prison, baby. You going to prison. Let's go. I hate for the people who want him off, who may have bet that he gonna get off. I want to bet. I want in on that.
That he might not even be thinking about ways in which he might want to defend himself. That is.
Remember when he testified in the Manhattan nightclub shooting that sent rapper Sean to prison for 10 years. Combs was acquitted of all charges in that case, by the way. We've got to mention that. But Ryan Smith, is it possible that he'll end up taking the stand in this trial? And should he, would you advise him to do so?
No, not at all. And I don't want to get on the wrong side of Suge now. That's number one.
Right.
But look.
No, neither do we. Neither do we.
But I'll tell you what. That is a last resort of last resorts. I know that people watch Law. Look, Stephen A., I'm a Law and Order fan too. I know people watch shows like that. They see people take the stand. Sometimes they see people jurors' minds being changed. Something comes out. Oh my God, I can't believe it. That is a rarity. This is something you do not want. The moment he takes the stand and opens his mouth, everything about his life is fair game, including stuff that they could not bring into court. Now he's opening his mouth. Let's ask him about those things that wouldn't have been admissible because he opened his mouth on them. Once he opens the door on some of that stuff, things that he might not even be thinking about, ways in which he might want to defend himself, that his lawyers tell him not to say, but maybe he could say because anything can happen on that stand. Now you're digging yourself into an even deeper hole. So for me, that I do not think he should do it. I would never advise it. And honestly, even if everything was against him, I would still say no. because once you open that door, that could change everything about what you as a defendant think, or what you as a person who's on trial thinks could happen to you. And I think it's easy for people to think about it outside of that. Like, I want to prove myself, but that is not how it plays out in a courtroom.
Maybe I'm thinking a little bit differently because I got to open my mouth for a living. I mean, you host, I commentate, you know? And so I'm thinking about, oh my God, people accused of that. I got to sit here and listen to all of these people talk, and I can't say anything in my defense. That's a hard one, Ryan.
But Stephen A., I see you get cross-examined, but now let's imagine you getting cross-examined on your own words for days in a row, and not only that, on things that might have flowed from those words that you didn't even bring up.
Right.
That's the problem with cross-examination. You open a door, and that door can be so much wider than you think.
Let me throw this by you. I don't know if you've seen the reports percolating right now, my man. Yeah. They're talking about how Trump, President Donald Trump, has not closed the door on pardoning P. Diddy for this sex trafficking and racketeering case. I mean, what do you make of that, Ryan? I mean, and how do you anticipate something like that could potentially influence the prosecution?
I don't even know what to say to that. Okay, so first thing is...
They go a poll, y'all. Should Diddy take the stand?
President Trump could do it. That's number one. Number two, as a prosecutor, I would not let that affect me in any way. Here's the deal. My job is to prosecute the case. That's it. My job is to prosecute the case. If the president chooses to do something else, then he chooses to do something else. Now, some people might be out there thinking, okay, if the prosecution hears this, maybe that makes them want to make a deal. That is not how I would approach it if I was a prosecutor. I would say I can't control those things. What I can control is the case I prosecute. And also, what I can control is what my office does.
I know, it's 6139.
We brought this RICO case, and we brought this sex trafficking case, and this is okay because we believe that we could win it. So we're going to pursue that. If something happens in the courtroom to change that, and we need to make a deal, fine. But I wouldn't do that on the basis of what someone outside of the case says. Because to me, that's where you start second guessing yourself and you erode your case once you start doing that. So if I'm prosecutors, that's noise. My case is my case inside the courtroom, and that's what I focus on.
Any idea how you think that would influence the defense, or dare I say a jury, if they somehow, some way became aware that the president is just lurking, being quoted as saying, "Diddy once liked me a lot." You know, I mean, we got along just fine. I mean, could you imagine it having any kind of impact on a jury or the defense and its approach, knowing there's a possibility maybe that's an angle they could work in the months to come?
I don't think it would have much of an impact on the defense, other than they too have to kind of go with what's in that courtroom. They're bound by in that courtroom, the judge is what matters. The jury is what matters. Outside actors do not matter. So for them, they got to focus on that. Now, could they use that later? If Diddy is convicted, they're trying to appeal. If there's rumblings about that, maybe that's a different discussion. But what I really worry about, Stephen A., is what you just said. A juror somehow finding out about this. You know, I just want to say this, as a person who's practiced law for decades, the courts are just, we don't realize how precious this institution is. We don't realize how amazing it is that we live in a society where people can be on trial and jurors can sit there and they can actually not read anything, see anything, and take the process so seriously that nothing outside affects them. It makes me sad that someone on the outside would say something, maybe are not realizing how that could taint somebody and possibly taint this process. Because I got to say, Stephen A., and this is not me just saying this is the greatest process in the world. And I know a lot of people feel like courts go against us, go against black folks. I understand that part of it. I'm just saying, like, the integrity of the court system is so vital to making these cases in any way fair. And if we start having people say things on the outside that could perhaps get to a juror, man, that's disappointing, because that's a slippery slope we don't want to go down.
Okay, let's see what's next, y'all. What I got next lined up. Not that yet, not yet, not that. Hold on, let's see what I got. Stop.
Welcome to News Nation's Back Scroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important...
I don't want that. Not yet. Hold on, y'all. Let me get to it. I got a lineup. I'm trying to stick to it so I won't be on here all day. You know what I mean? And that just got put up in the lineup, and I need to remove it. What is that? What is this? What is this? Come on, I'm getting there. There go one. No, not who's Mia. Did I just do it? I did that one. I'm not ready for that one. Let's see what this one is. Come on.
Will not get argument from me, and of course, it is the prosecution who has to carry that burden. And we don't know how the jury is seeing and viewing any of this.
Let me
Go ahead.
What I can say is that the jurors are smart jurors. They paying.
Hold on. Let me back it up,
And
y'all.
the judge is a young but very smart.
I got all on my hands. Hold on.
To bring that kind if you're
Let's go.
like a close to billionaire person running 30 different businesses Instagram back then.
Woman. And, you know,
Say about Diddy's threats. She described one trip that she and Cassie took
Okay,
to South
let's go.
Africa, a trip that quickly turned dark. Diddy, he was back in Miami, trying to get Cassie to talk after she found out that he had been with another woman. Mia testified that Diddy flooded her with threatening text messages over a period of days, saying he was threatening
happy
my
birthday,
job,
Mo 3.
and then he threatened to kill me. Now, Mia
I'm gonna
claimed
go.
that Diddy attempted to blackmail her on that very same trip, saying that Diddy threatened to tell Cassie what he had done to Mia, as if the alleged sexual abuse was somehow Mia's fault or that she was a willing participant. The jury saw one text from Diddy to Mia that said this: "If you don't call me now, F it all, and I'm gonna tell everything, and don't ever speak to me again. You have 2 minutes. F her." Now, Mia, she eventually left her job in 2017, but that wasn't the last time she heard from Diddy. She told the court that Diddy and his longtime security guard, men, as it mentioned throughout the entire trial, D-Rock, reached out to her. When? Well, it was after Cassie's lawsuit was filed in 2023, saying Puff wanted D-Rock to get me and make sure that I wasn't a threat. And just before lunch, defense attorney Brian Steele got his chance to cross-examine Mia. He put up several posts from her own Instagram account. Now, some of those showed photos of Mia standing close to Diddy. Others showed her showering him with praise, calling him a mentor, an inspiration. Steele pressed her, quote, "On the 5th anniversary of the initial sexual abuse, you are saying to Sean Combs on your social media account for everyone to see, thank you for being the good kind of crazy and continuing to inspire me every day, right?" Mia replied, "I don't think people wrote bad stuff about their life on Instagram back then."
They didn't.
Now, the defense also suggested that she outright fabricated her sexual assault claims 3 different times. In one exchange, Steele asked, "Isn't it true that Mr. Combs never had unwanted, non-consensual, forcible sexual contact with you? Isn't that true?" Mia responded, "What I said in this courtroom is the truth. I have not lied to anyone at all." Steele asked why she worked for Diddy so long and for so long and spoke positively about him despite her claims of physical and sexual and emotional abuse. She told the jury, "I was young and manipulated and just eager to survive. Nobody was there to say these things that were happening were wrong. I was always in trouble, and I was always just trying to find a way not to be in trouble." Now, we are now 3 weeks into this trial, but the drama is not limited to courtroom 26A in Lower Manhattan. Today, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, weighed in. He was actually asked if he would consider or had considered pardoning Diddy.
I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up from what I read. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated,
They cut that
whether
other
they
part
like
out.
me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact.
Let's begin with editor-in-chief of All Rise News, Adam Klasfeld, our eyes and ears in court today. Adam, you were there. You saw the way this crossed and the testimony came in. The defense suggested 3 different times that the woman who is called Mia made up the allegation of sexual abuse and assault. The exchange, the way you read it in the testimony and transcript, seems harsh. How did it play in person in front of that jury?
It was just as combative as the transcript suggests. Brian Steele didn't hold back. He didn't soft pedal the question. And as you saw in the transcript, Mia didn't back down. She seemed a little taken aback, as if she didn't understand.
When the gunman shot his way into Sandy Hook Elementary School on December 14th, 2012.
She was telling the truth, that she was lying to nobody. And that was something that was a constant throughout her testimony, that she was confronted with these social media posts, primarily her Instagram posts, and she acknowledged that these were hers, these were things that she wrote, and she was very confident in talking about that, and she said that that just related to her trauma.
She was very emotional throughout her testimony, her voice almost a whisper at times, I understand, and she did not want to be there. She wanted to take a lot of the information that she says happened to her grave, and she testified today that there was nobody, this stuck out, there was nobody around us that ever even flinched at his behavior. Obviously, this goes towards this notion of an enterprise of people working together to silence those who were being victimized allegedly. But how did the jury react to the way that she was testifying and even that part about nobody flinching?
Now, it's very interesting you point out that line, because at that very moment, I was looking at the jury and jurors were taking notes. And as you noted, Laura, I mean, that line is very significant because of the top racketeering charge. Prosecutors are alleging a criminal enterprise, and multiple jurors, it resonated.
Oh, you think
They
so,
were
Karen?
Pretty much all business for hours, just
That's
seeing
not what
the,
Harvey Levin said.
exhibits of the social media posts. They were doing their jobs and passing around the sketchbook at one time. But when it came to that testimony, they started scribbling in their notepads. Now, we don't know what caused that. We don't know what precipitated that, but we knew that they were engaged, and we know that that's very important testimony to the prosecution.
Let me see if I can find
It
it.
really is. And of course, trying to read those tea leaves in the version of notes in those moments really can be impactful. Adam, thank you for being our
I think
eyes and
I
ears.
played it
Guys,
yesterday.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, my all-star attorney panel is here with me as well. We've got Monique Presley, who has represented in the past Bill Cosby, constitutional attorney and white-collar defense lawyer Seth Berensweig, and Benjamin Chu, former co-lead counsel for Johnny Depp.
I think he said the lead counsel
against Amber
said he
Heard.
don't know if he can keep him off.
Ben, I want to start with you because in our conversation even yesterday, we were trying to figure out how the cross was going to go. The optics, because she was so emotional. Even more so, frankly, in terms of the tears and the sobbing than even Cassie Ventura had been throughout the course of her testimony, not comparing the traumas that they had both alleged, but it was notable just how emotional she was. And you thought that the defense had to handle her with care. Did they accomplish that?
No.
No.
I don't think so. I think with a witness like that, as we discussed last night, you have to be very careful. This is a likable witness, a credible witness, and you have to have a much lighter touch. To say abruptly, isn't it true you didn't have forcible sex with Diddy? How, of course, is she going to answer that? But of course it's true. I would never make this up. And as your reporter said, she had a very strong, firm response to that. I don't know what he gets out of that. And his other question, what if you're not the victim? Well, I am the victim. I don't think
it's
going to
backfire.
Would have played well before the jury.
What do you think? You're a defense attorney and have done a lot of work in this area. How would that approach have resonated with you? Would you have taken the approach of challenging her in that way? I mean, in a way, Diddy is fighting for his life and his attorneys have to perform for him as well. Would you have taken that tactic?
Right, and sometimes it's not even the tact you take, it's which lawyer you use for the tact that you take. And so I was more interested in the choices being made because, as you said, if they're going to go hard and they feel like they have to for whatever reason, maybe they've got facts we don't know about yet, and so they view the witness on the stand as being a fraud, being a liar, being someone who's pretending with all of these tears but really behaved a different way. Well, if you're going to show me that in this cross-examination, I need to see it early on, or you're running the risk of really alienating the jury. But then, unfortunately, we're still in a very sexist society, and you don't know what jury you're dealing with. So if you have a woman who maybe could handle these hard questions in a softer way, maybe you use that strategy. But I didn't have an issue with the fact that they had to ask these hard questions, because I think, frankly, that's their obligation. You can't soft pedal with a witness who, from their perspective, is on the stand crucifying their client and falsifying testimony before the jury. You've got to figure out a way to get somewhere in the middle of the road, and I think maybe it's with strategy instead of with the actual words on the page.
Really important point that he's got like 8 or 9 attorneys, by the way, several of whom are women. And I wondered about the tactic and when they've used which counsel. By the way, the prosecution also, all women. So the idea of how they have decided to divvy up the work is also really, they all have different styles and personalities. But to the point of what they have to prove in the prosecution, Seth, I mean, they had testimony that came in that Diddy was trying to blackmail her as well, either taking photos off her phone, putting them on his own phone, dangling this idea that she had sold some sort of a comedy series to ABC and then saying, I'll get rid of that unless you have Cassie call me back, all these things. Does that fit the kind of pattern that you need to establish that RICO charge?
In my view, it does, and I think the prosecution has done a very solid job so far. Now, make no mistake about it, there's still a long way to go in this case, and they have to continue to develop the evidentiary scaffolding. But I thought that they have done a tremendous job with the witnesses, and let's just continue to focus on Mia. One of the things that was interesting, you talk about a criminal business enterprise, which was one of the evidentiary requirements. They covered a lot of that with her, other witnesses as well, but they're covering members of the business enterprise who are essentially, participants in this whole element. And,
Hey, Kane Life. Hey, Scott. Thank you, Kane Life, for the high
in identifying
fives.
the elements of the business conspiracy. Remember, this is a corporation. This is a historically rare theory that a business, extremely rare in recent modern American business history, has been used to facilitate basically him running an empire as a sex mobster. They talked about, for example, the HR department. And one of the questions that they asked Mia was, and this takes victim blaming to a whole new level. They said, well, did you report the sex freak-offs to HR? And she said, no, of course I didn't, because they're just going to protect him. So I thought that was pretty underwhelming as well.
That's an important part, because that goes to the idea of the inner circle and the realm that they're trying to establish. But I just play devil's advocate. I mean, RICO cases are very hard to prove, and connecting those dots in real time to a juror who's watching and wondering, am I seeing a toxic, harmful, violent relationship? Am I seeing RICO? How can you bridge it? Of course, the closing will do a lot of that. But then there was this moment about her testimony where she said that she believed that he had reached out to her last year around the time that lawsuit came out from Cassie Ventura. D-Rock, the security guard's also been mentioned, that to kind of make sure she wasn't a threat. If you're the defense counsel, how do you guard against the idea of witness tampering?
I think that's very difficult, and those facts are really bad. And the fact that D-Rock was involved makes it seem much more like an enterprise. It's not Diddy himself making the call, it's one of his employees. So I think that's a damning fact.
He called as well, but you're right, D-Rock was a part of it and thinking it. But then again, when you're building a case for defense, you want to know who might be in your camp, right? You have to explore, in some respects, who does not have this vision of me. They have to build a case, right? A defense.
Yes, and also the fact that if you're like a...
I had my husband take a photo for me and show me my results, and literally
you don't make most calls. So the obligation for the defense, if they choose to put on a case, will be to do some of what the assistant did, where the assistant was trying to explain, no, he wouldn't have known how many bottles of baby oil there were because he's running a global empire.
Kane Life, high five,
high five. Some people, typical jurors, might not have an understanding of how how little of a person's life, like Mr. Combs, actually touches grass, as the kids would say, and how many things are actually done by other people, and to not import me.
If I think somebody was mistreated,
Well, did I go
whether
back
they
that
like
far?
me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any.
Use which counsel. By the way, the prosecution also,
sorry.
all women. So the idea of how they have decided to divvy up the work is also really, they all have different styles and personalities. But to the point of what they have to prove in the prosecutions, that, I mean, they had testimony that came in that Diddy was trying to blackmail her as well, either taking photos off her phone, putting them on his own phone, dangling this idea that she had sold some sort of a comedy series to ABC, and then saying, I'll get rid of that unless you have Cassie call me back, all these things. Does that fit the kind of pattern that you need to establish that RICO charge?
In my view, it does, and I think the prosecution has done a very solid job so far. Now, make no mistake about it, there's still a long way to go in this case, and they have to continue to develop the evidentiary scaffolding. But I thought that they have done a tremendous job with the witnesses, and let's just continue to focus on Mia. One of the things that was interesting, you talk about a criminal business enterprise, which was one of the evidentiary requirements. They covered a lot of that with her, other witnesses as well, but they're covering members of the business enterprise who are essentially, participants in this whole element. And, you were talking about some of the underwhelming questions that counsel asked today in identifying the elements of the business conspiracy. Remember, this is a corporation. This is a historically rare theory that a business, extremely rare in recent modern American business history, has been used to facilitate basically him running an empire as a sex mobster. They talked about, for example, the HR department. And one of the questions that they asked Mia was, and this takes victim blaming to a whole new level. They said, well, did you report the sex freak offs to HR? And she said, no, of course I didn't, because they're just going to protect him. So I thought that was pretty underwhelming as well.
That's an important part, because that goes to the idea of the inner circle and the realm that they're trying to establish. But I just playing devil's advocate. I mean, RICO cases are very hard to prove, and connecting those dots in real time to a juror who's watching and wondering, am I seeing a toxic, harmful, violent relationship? Am I seeing RICO? How can you bridge it? Of course, the closing will do a lot of that. But then there was this moment about her testimony where she said that she believed that he had reached out to her last year around the time that lawsuit came out from Cassie Ventura. D-Rock, the security guard's also been mentioned, that to kind of make sure she wasn't a threat. If you're the defense counsel, how do you guard against the idea of witness tampering?
I think that's very difficult, and those facts are really bad. And the fact that D-Rock was involved makes it seem much more like an enterprise. It's not Diddy himself making the call, it's one of his employees. So I think that's a damning fact.
He called as well, but you're right, D-Rock was a part of it and thinking it. But then again, when you're building a case for defense, you want to know who might be in your camp, right? You have to explore in some respects who does not have this vision of me. They have to build a case, right? A defense.
Yes, and also the fact that if you're like a close to billionaire person running 30 different businesses, you don't make every call about anything. You don't make most calls. So the obligation for the defense,
I have it, Karen. I'll play it after this one,
will be to do some of what the assistant did, where the assistant was trying to explain, no, he wouldn't have known how many bottles of baby oil there were because he's running a global empire, and that's just not the things that they do. And I think maybe some people, typical jurors, might not have an understanding of how little of a person's life, like Mr. Combs, actually touches grass, as the kids would say, and how many things are actually done by other people, and to not import meaning into that isn't there. And I'm not saying it is or isn't there in this instance. Maybe D-Rock was the henchman who did all of the strengthening of situations for him and shoring it up and fixing it. But it could also be the case that this is just not a person who did a lot of anything on his own. Everything that happened was call this person, get this done, do that, while he focused on other things. So I think that will be their job to bring that kind of revelation to a jury.
A really important point, and just remind people, we'll come back with more information.
Hit the poll. We had 189 votes.
Was one of and his wife were a
Come
couple
on,
that she
300 and something people in here.
at times. You have to bring that into how
And hit the like
bring that
button.
into the conversation. As much as he was part, she couldn't do anything
Please.
else. I'm curious to see how, when she comes back on the stand, Mia, on Monday, that sort of cooling off period where the jury has to remember key moments. While some people in the industry are dropping Diddy, others are standing right by his side. One supporter was in court today to support Combs, music producer and longtime friend of Combs, Charlucci Finney. He even walked out of court with Combs's kids. And he insists that Combs is innocent of the sex trafficking, the prostitution, and the racketeering charges that he faces. And Charlucci Finney joins me now. Charlucci, I see you outside of court nearly every single day. You are wearing free puffy. People know that you
He
are
must
in
have been
full
in one of
support
the freak
him.
offs.
You have been speaking to him as well. Can you tell me and share how Diddy is feeling about how this trial is going?
He's just confident. He's prayed up, and he's just pretty much confident about telling the truth and getting the truth out there and explaining his version of what's going on.
You know, when you watch him in court, he is staring straight ahead. He is hearing from people who were very close to him at one point, Cassie Ventura, his ex-assistant Mia, among others. He almost seems very stoic and not like he's reacting in real time to it. Has he shared any thoughts about what it was like to hear people like Cassie Ventura allege the things that she has, or Mia, as she's known in court, allege what she has alleged?
It's for sure heartbreaking, right? Because these are people that you trust, people that you actually help make money with and for, and people that you looked at as family, and to hear the outlandish things that they're saying, right? And then try to embellish even more on top of it is incredible. And to be the victim of hearing it is crazy.
Why are you so confident that it is embellishment? Tell us about what you know about Diddy that makes you confident that you think he'll be acquitted.
Well, only God knows he's going to be acquitted, right? So we are prayed up.
Don't start stuttering now.
Me knowing him, I know the man, right? I know him.
You don't know the crack fiend.
He's a brother. He's an uncle. He's a cousin. He's a producer. He's a philanthropist.
He's a drug addict.
And we all fall short sometimes. We all make mistakes, right? And this is not about the mistake he made. This is about something else.
What is it about to you? They talk a lot about you're calling them mistakes, and obviously the allegations, they go beyond, a slap on the wrist. They're talking about rape. They're talking about predatory behavior, among so many other things. What do you think this is really about if it's not about pursuing
I don't
those?
know. I really don't know what it's about, but I know that it's allegations. Mm-hmm. It's one person.
How can you defend someone in their character and everything if you don't even know what it's about? So that means right now you have integrity issues. Okay? Okay, right off the bat, you open your mouth. You already know what he's up against, and you start naming off, he's a father, he's an uncle, he's a this, that, he the ba-da, ba-ba, ba-dee, ba-da. Yeah, but it's really not about that. Well, what is it about? I don't know. What? I'd have moved him over to the side. What? What you up here for? Do you know what you up here for? So you in defense of somebody, and you don't even know what you in defense of. And we supposed to take you serious. Is that what you're telling me? So that means to me, in my opinion, that you are one of the people who are probably helping him violate people. Because you won't even take ownership, or you won't even acknowledge what you up here defending. You say he falls short. We all do, and indeed we do. But you said, but that's not what we up here for. Well, what we up here for? So you're a liar. You're a deceiver. You're deceitful. You're manipulative. You must be narcissistic too. You're a yeah. Because you can't take ownership. You can't even acknowledge what you up here for. But you defending. You defending. And you don't even know what you're defending. Now, even he has said he was dark and he was disgusted in himself when it became public. Now, he may have since changed his mind, but you acting like that ain't him. He said that was him when he got busted. See, I know narcissists don't like being exposed. I do know that. But once it was out there, he didn't have a choice but to own it. But you, sir, you just lying right off the bat. You covering right off the bat. That's part of the problem. People covering for him, even victims. And because they covered, right? Now people are looking at them like they foolish, crazy. I don't believe you. Why you cover for him? See, it backfires. You think you doing a good job. You think you protecting his brand. You protecting him and harming yourself. So that means that you put him before yourself. That's why he kept coming back to y'all room. That's why he kept putting hands on y'all, throwing shit at y'all. Because y'all protected a predator. See, he proving my point. You cannot protect a predator. You got to call a narcissist out. And if they don't like what they're hearing, then they will fix themselves or go get help, right? But as long as we, y'all, because I ain't protecting none of them. I ain't protecting none of them. Abusers, mentally, emotionally, physically, verbally, spiritually, I ain't protecting none of them. Predator, hell no. Because if you protect them, they will continue. And it sounds like his partner down there enjoyed them freak-offs. I'm talking about the one in the all-white party, the after party at the after party, where people get them tranquilizers or get them pills and stuff, and then they wind up in beds they didn't know where they was and screaming and hollering because somebody done entered into them without permission. Let's keep listening. This clown here.
Last today,
and to be the victim of hearing it is crazy.
What?
I've done a tremendous job with.
Don't make every call about anything. You don't make most calls.
He is
There's two
absolutely
sides to every story.
He is presumed innocent. You will not get argument from me. And of course, it is the
To protect him. So.
Yeah. He is staring straight ahead. He is hearing from people who were very close to him at one point, Cassie.
The sex mobster, they
I'm trying to hear it
for
over.
example, the HR department. And one of the questions that they asked Mia was,
This clown
takes
here.
victim blaming to a whole new level. They said, well, did you report this?
Yeah, I know I got a name for him.
He is
There's two
absolutely
sides to every story.
He is presumed innocent. You will.
There's two sides to every story, but a lot of these people who don't even know the other person's stories have the same story about one person.
And we all fall short sometimes. We all make mistakes, right? And this is not about the mistake he made. This is about something else.
What is it about to you? Because they talk a lot about not. I mean, you're calling them mistakes, and obviously, the allegations they go beyond, a slap on the wrist. They're talking about rape. They're talking about predatory behavior, among so many other things. What do you think is this is really about if it's not about pursuing
I don't
those?
know. I really don't know what it's about, but I know.
I don't know
that
what
it's
it's about.
Allegations. It's one person, two people telling you a story. It's a story. It's something somebody's telling you. But that's why we in the court of law, and that's why we're on trial to prove his innocence.
He is
There's two sides
absolutely
to every story.
He is presumed innocent. You will not get
1,000%.
argument from me. And of course, it is the prosecution who has to carry that burden. And we don't know how the jury is.
We know he apologized for something. What did he apologize for?
What I can say is that the jurors are smart jurors. They paying close attention, and the judge is a young but very smart, no nonsense judge. I like this judge. He's not going for no kind of craziness on his watch. He's checking the defense. He's checking the government. You know, he's giving clear, decisive information and direction to the jurors, and they're paying attention. So, you know, I feel good about where we're going, and I feel good about when our team delivers our case.
You know, I certainly appreciate the way the judge is handling this. There is an element of fairness, and I don't think either side has escaped his notice or critique at times. But you mentioned putting on the defense case. Do you think Diddy's going to testify? Do you have any idea of who might go and be on the stand?
I don't think you'll be able to keep him off of there.
Really?
Because
See, there go another one. Karen.
He's charismatic. He's smart, and
He said the same thing Harvey Levin
you
said.
don't have nothing to hide. You don't have anything to hide.
Well, you know, with all the allegations that have come in, I have to tell you, I'm not sure how many more skeletons could allegedly be in one's closet than what has come out in terms of what they have alleged. And to that end, I have seen his family in court. I've seen his mother, his sister, his children, his daughters. Of course, his sons are there as well. Not the youngest.
Hey, Grandma Way.
What has it been like for his
Sound like he's
children, some of whom
in defense
lost their
of
mother
the money.
tragically?
It's for the love of money.
Yeah, and I want people to understand that as well. These are children, right? That the only living parent is Puff, right? They have to sit there.
That's not
10
true.
feet, 15 feet away from their father. They can't hug him. They can't kiss him. They got to whisper to him and throw signs and stuff like that to show them that they love him. And you know, it's heartbreaking for the girls. He wasn't there for the graduation. He wasn't there for the prom. You know, he wasn't there to to send them off to school and none of that. So you know.
He should have thought about that.
You know, I did have a conversation last night. We had Suge Knight on the program, and he was calling in from prison, and he was talking about, similarly, what you talked about, whether Diddy should testify. He seemed to think that it was in his best interest to testify, otherwise people would feel like he had something to hide. Now, obviously, the jurors are
He
gonna
do
be
have something to
expected,
hide.
but you cannot hold against somebody who doesn't choose to testify. But one thing he did say was he believed that Diddy would be okay because he thinks that President Trump would ultimately pardon him if he were convicted. President Trump was asked about that today, and if he would
I told you,
pardon
Suge.
Combs. He didn't
Suge brought that.
dismiss the idea, but if Combs is pardoned, do you think, if convicted, will the president pardon him?
I would hope that he do.
No, they got bad blood.
Case and see that this is a bunch of trumped up charges, because if you look at it, only thing they've shown you, right, to date, this is probably what, the second, third week of trial, right? Everything the government promised you, they have yet to show you. They promised you all this stuff. Only thing they showed you was domestic violence, drug abuse. They have not shown you the machine, and they have not shown you racketeering. They showed you the man, and they showed you drug addiction and domestic violence. They haven't showed you anything else. And this case is not about domestic violence.
sick.
It's about the other charges that they brought upon him, and they have yet to prove that.
Well, of course, they will try to show these so-called predicate crimes fall into what you've described, but hearing about the domestic violence, about the drugs, were you surprised when that testimony came in? Do you believe any of it?
I mean, you saw what I saw. So, the drugs, I was surprised about the drugs. Because I don't know Puff to do drugs, right? So me hearing it.
Also, you don't know
first
Puff.
time, yeah. We were shocked. His kids were shocked. His mom was shocked. We didn't know he was doing drugs. We didn't know Cassie was doing drugs. We didn't.
Oh, so y'all ain't friends.
That was their thing.
The violence?
So he hold on, y'all. Uh-oh. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So he don't know Puff. He don't know him. So he one of them paid employees. He getting paid by the hour. How you on God give a day? What are you talking about? Is this Grandma Way? I need help because I'm using my bank card. How? 'Cause don't know what you mean, Grandma White. How can he say he don't know Puff do drugs? So you don't go to the all-white parties? His mama was getting the IV to get rehydrated. She didn't know he do drugs. Really? See, this is why I can't do that. I can't do it. I cannot. How did you not know? I thought that when they walked around, the little cute girls with the wings, and some of them got on bathing suits, and hell, some of them are topless with the trays, with the alcohol and pills. Hell, I ain't never went to the party, but I know how the line up and the serve up is. So are you one of the ones that's saying wear the t-shirt for $20 an hour? Are you a $20 an hour employee, sir? Cause you lying. You lying. You talking about you didn't know Diddy did drugs. Diddy been doing drugs. So now you're exposing your hand. So they must be paying you. Oh, I cannot. Let me pay this bill.
How about that?
I mean,
Because they talk a lot about you're calling them mistakes, and obviously.
Grandma,
the
what you
allegations,
mean?
They
Hi,
go beyond,
AunTeaFee.
a slap on the wrist.
How
They're talking
you,
about rape. They're talking about
God,
predatory behavior, among so many other things. What?
Get paid
want
to
to
be real.
subscribe to
Apply
your
for
channel. I
InFocus.
need help. Grandma, I don't know what you're trying to say.
But
like you said, it's allegations. It's one person, two people telling you a story. It's a story. It's something somebody's telling you. But
And you
that's why
telling the
that's
story
why
right
we're
now.
in court of law, and that's why we're on trial to prove his innocence.
He's
There's two
absolutely
sides to every story.
He is presumed innocent. You will not get
1,000%.
argument from me. And of course, it is the prosecution who has to carry that burden.
He
And
telling the story.
don't
He
know
lying,
how
y'all.
the jury is seeing and viewing any of this. Go ahead.
What I can say is that the jurors are smart jurors. They're paying close attention, and the judge is a young but very smart, no nonsense judge. I like this judge. He's not going for no kind of craziness on his watch. He's checking the defense. He's checking the government, and he's giving clear, decisive information and direction to the jurors, and they're paying attention. So I feel good about where we're going, and I feel good about when our team delivers our case.
I certainly appreciate the way the judge is handling this. There is an element of fairness, and I don't think either side has escaped his notice or critique at times. But you mentioned putting on the defense case. Do you think Diddy's going to testify? Do you have any idea of who might go and be on the stand?
I don't think you'll be able to keep him off of there.
Really?
Because I just don't think so. Because he's charismatic, he's smart, and
300.
and he don't have
Children, some of whom
I had to take that. I'm
lost
sorry.
their mother trapped go charge.
In my view, it does, and I think the prosecution has done a very solid job.
Person's life, because they talk a lot about you're calling them mistakes, and obviously the allegations, they go beyond, a slap on the wrist. They're talking about rape. They're talking about predatory behavior, among so many other things. What do you think this is really about if it's not about pursuing
I don't
those?
know. I really don't know what it's about, but I know that, like you said, it's allegations. It's one person, two people telling you a story. It's a story. It's something somebody's telling you. But that's why we in the court of law, and that's why we're on trial to prove his innocence.
Oh, June the 7th.
There's two sides to every story.
He is presumed innocent. You will not get
1,000%.
argument from me. And of course, it is the prosecution who has to carry that burden. And we don't know how the jury is seeing and viewing any of this. Go ahead.
What I can say is that the jurors are smart jurors. They're paying close attention, and the judge is a young but very smart, no nonsense judge. I like this judge. He's not going for no kind of craziness on his watch. He's checking the defense. He's checking the government, and he's giving clear, decisive information and direction to the jurors, and they're paying attention. So I feel good about where we're going, and I feel good about when our team delivers our case.
I certainly appreciate the way the judge is handling this. There is an element of fairness, and I don't think either side has escaped his notice or critique at times. But you mentioned putting on the defense case. Do you think Diddy's going to testify? Do you have any idea of who might go and be on the stand?
I don't think you'll be able to keep him off of there.
Really?
Because I just don't think so. Because he's charismatic, he's smart, and he don't have nothing to hide. He don't have anything to hide.
Well, with all the allegations that have come in, I have to tell you, I'm not sure how many more skeletons could allegedly be in one's closet than what has come out in terms of what they have alleged. And to that end, I have seen his family in court. I've seen his mother, his sister, his children, his daughters. Of course, his sons are there as well. I'm not the youngest among them. What has it been like for his children, some of whom lost their mother tragically just a few years ago?
Yeah, and I want
68% says yes, he should take the stand. 32% says no. And 300 and something people have voted.
They got to whisper to him and throw signs and stuff like that to show him that they love him. And it's heartbreaking for
376 people
he wasn't there for the prom.
Voted.
He wasn't there to to send him off to school and none of that. So it's heartbreaking.
I did have a conversation last night. We had Suge Knight on the program, and he was calling in from prison, and he was talking about, similarly, what you talked about, whether Diddy should testify. He seemed to think that it was in his best interest to testify. Otherwise, people would feel like he had something to hide. Now, obviously, the jurors are going to be instructed that you cannot hold against somebody who doesn't choose to testify.
Right.
But one thing he did say was he believed that Diddy would be okay because he thinks that President Trump would ultimately pardon him if he were convicted. President Trump was asked about that today, and if he would pardon Combs, and he didn't dismiss the idea. But if Combs is pardoned, do you think, if convicted, will the president pardon him?
I would hope that he do.
He can't answer, can he?
Look at this case and see that this is a bunch of trumped up charges because
he know that they done had a falling out.
Everything they've shown you, right, to date, this is probably the second, third week of trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything the government promised you, they have yet to show you. They promised you all this stuff. Only thing they showed you was domestic violence, drug abuse. They have not shown you the machine, and they have not shown you racketeering. They showed you the man, and they showed you drug addiction and domestic violence. They haven't showed you anything else.
He is crazy.
It's not about domestic violence. It's about the other charges that they brought upon him, and they have yet to prove that.
Well, of course,
domestic violence is not beating on the co-workers, employees.
Hearing about the domestic violence, not the drugs. Were you surprised when that testimony came in? Do you believe any of it?
You saw what I saw. So, the drugs, I was surprised about the drugs. I don't know Puff to do drugs, right?
Liar.
So me hearing it for the first time, we were shocked. His kids were shocked. His mom was shocked. We didn't know he was doing drugs. We didn't know Cassie was doing drugs. This is a part of their life that they kept to them. That was their thing.
The violence? How about that?
They had a strange, toxic relationship. You know what I'm saying? John B had a record a long time ago, and the song went, "They Don't Know About Us." That's their connection. That's their love. That's their strange way of connecting. It don't work for you, don't work for me, but that's them. That's their relationship.
On day 13, here we are, the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. There was a tense back and forth between the defense and the second woman to accuse Diddy of sexual abuse. In just a moment, my team of legal experts and court insiders will look at
and sexual abuse. Let me get to the next one. And sexual abuse or domestic DV has nothing to do with beating his employees. So how can you say all they've shown is DV when they have it employees? I'm trying to see where I'm going next, y'all. Bear with me. What about him beating and throwing stuff at his employees? They don't have nothing to do with DV. So what are you talking about, lady? Sir. I called him a lady, didn't I? What are you talking about? Okay, if Karen, you still here?
The sweetest moments deserve the boldest.
I told you I was gonna play this.
With our new concrete mixers and lemon ice coolers.
This is the day that Harvey didn't want to say who the winner was.
Well, today in court, there was.
This is when he said that they can't keep him out. So
Close the loop on,
not only did he say, the attorney say they can't keep him out.
More than just
Now his supposed to be friends say they're not gonna be able to keep him off the stand.
With alleged victim number 4, who goes by the name Mia. It's an alias. She is one of the people who is testifying where the judge has granted her anonymity. She is on the stand, but everybody in the courtroom has been warned. Do not reveal her identity. Do not even give a physical description of her. And that was the deal. The judge has made it clear. If anybody violates that, there will be severe consequences. Okay, so she testified, excuse me, that she was Diddy's ex-assistant. She said he raped her, sexually assaulted her in various ways multiple times. He exacted unbelievable violence against her, threatened her, one point allegedly threatened to take her phone and use anything on the phone against her. Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, you don't do a freak off, I'm going to release one of the freak off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you. So she was in line with Cassie's testimony. Here's my issue. That there are some people who think that both Mia and Cassie really bolster this claim of racketeering that the prosecutors are making. And I just don't see it. I think that with Cassie, clearly we're talking about the charge of transporting people for sex under force or coercion. And I think Mia has backed that up.
But his friend gonna try to say they ain't showed it yet. He lying.
Story and on things she observed with Cassie. But, I don't think it's the same as blowing up Kid Cudi's car if the jury believes that Diddy did it. I don't think it's the same as burglarizing Kid Cudi's home and using people in real organized crime tactics. I am not certain that a jury is going to see a jealous, crazy boyfriend or employer the same way they would see a racketeer. And because of that, what I don't understand is why this prosecutor or the prosecutors wouldn't do all of the Cassie testimony together. In other words, do Cassie and Mia together and then do Cudi with all the racketeering allegations and the other allegations. But they seem to be hopscotching back and forth. And to me, it's not telling a tight story. So we will see if this jury ultimately says this is a form of racketeering. I just don't know that it's there. Deontay Nash, by the way, I want to say one other thing before I get to Deontay. Capricorn, another one of his assistants, I think goes a long way on the racketeering front. And to me, it's combining Kitty and Capricorn.
Finally, the perfect pants that keep my legs sweat-free in summer. Get 3 pairs delivered to your door.
Kitty and Capricorn and showing all of Diddy's tactics of holding somebody hostage, like kidnapping them for 5 days because she might have a relationship with Suge Knight. That's where you start feeling racketeering. Putting the two of them together, to me, is more powerful than separating them. And they were separated on the stand by other witnesses. And it just feels to me Like you build one area and then you build the next area, but you don't hopscotch back and forth. They can always fix that in a very powerful closing argument. And the prosecutor, in this case, Comey, apparently excels at closing arguments. But I just don't understand as you go along that you don't want to cement those two things differently and separately. Okay, let's get into Deontay. So Deontay was Cassie and Diddy's stylist. And up to this point, what we heard with Cassie was that Michael B. Jordan and Cassie were essentially on the same movie set. Okay, so they knew each other. But Deontay said he hooked the two of them up. So it's not just they happen to be in the same movie set. He's almost saying, I put them together. And he also says that Cassie was with an NFL player by the name of Andre Grant. So this is the defense on cross-examination talking to Deontay. And I think the reason they're doing this, in fact, I'm pretty sure, is, look, you've already heard witnesses who have said that Cassie was the victim of Stockholm Syndrome, that even though she could leave, she really couldn't because she was essentially like a battered woman. She was a battered woman. We know she was a battered woman because we saw the 2016 Intercontinental tape. So what the expert psychologist said was, don't think just because she could walk out the door meant she had free will to do that. What the defense is doing with Michael B. Jordan especially is saying, wait a minute, if the stylist to both Cassie and Diddy would feel comfortable enough to hook Michael B. Jordan up with Cassie, and Cassie was game, how did she feel trapped in the relationship with Diddy? Now, I'm not saying she wasn't, but I'm saying that was the point prosecutors are trying to make. And on that point, one of the things they got Deontay to say was Cassie was a bad singer. Now, that's relevant, again, for the same point, that
you've probably heard about Boxable's flagship product, the Casino.
For the same point, that what the defense is trying to show is that Cassie wasn't just enslaved in a relationship she didn't want to be in. She was in a relationship that gave her something. And when Deontay says she's a bad singer, the clear intimation is she really couldn't get success as a singer unless she had somebody like Diddy. And that there was something in it for her. You know, at one point, he said something to the effect of, well, who am I going to get next? Jay-Z is taken. So the way the defense wants to make it look is that Cassie was an opportunist. That's the way they're painting her, that she hitched her wagon to somebody who could make her famous and make her successful in a career that she might not necessarily have the talent for. So we'll see if that resonates at all with the jury. Final thing I want to say is, I think at this point, you got to wonder, is Diddy going to take the stand? Now, I spoke with Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lead lawyer, about this in one of our Tubi documentaries, and he said, I don't think I can keep him off the stand. Well, with all due respect, I think you will keep him off the stand, Mr. Agnifilo. There is no way that Diddy will be subjected to the kind of cross-examination
he think he King Kong.
There is just no way that's going to happen. And even if Diddy wants to testify, Mark Agnifilo is a great and powerful lawyer. Tenny Garrigus, the same, and the other lawyers on that case as well. There is no way, in my view, no matter what Diddy wants, they will prevail upon him. There is just no way I see him taking the stand. That said, I have been surprised in other trials, but they got to start thinking about that now.
I told you. They saying he trying to insist on being on the stand, whether they recommend it or not. Let him put his own nail in his own coffin. Let him seal his own, I don't want to say death, but yeah. Let him pick out his own prison cell. So his friend that ain't his friend, who don't even know his good and his bad, all he knows he a father, he this, he that, and he that. He ain't even know he been having a long time a drug habit. He say a whole bunch of stuff that he don't know, but he's supposed to be his friend. You're a lie, and truth ain't in you. Either you are a co-conspirator, and you know, or you getting that $20 an hour. I wasn't supposed to say that. Let me go over to another legal expert. I'm not gonna be on here all day. In about 20 minutes, y'all. Y'all need to hit my like button, super chat, super sticker, or cash out. Cause if not, I'm gonna play this one and one more, and I'm out. And they not long. Woo, sure ain't. Which one I say I'm gonna play for? This one. Let's go. He want to get on the stage, y'all.
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter. But
The high publicity of this trial makes it messy and complicated. But if there's somebody I want to help me sort through it, it's NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny,
507 votes. Let's see.
Office. And so as we close out, we just want to listen quickly to what President Trump had to say when he was asked about considering a pardon.
I don't know.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage.
I mean, testimony's still underway, Danny. What's the impact or potential impact of just that statement? Anything?
Yeah, it's probably no impact. This is Trump just saying words and they're coming out of his mouth. But I mean, as president, he can pardon someone at any time. He can pardon someone even before they're arrested. So he could do it now. He could wait until he's convicted. It's totally up to the president.
All right, let's ask you about the testimony this week. People who worked with Sean Diddy Combs at various points, a lot of graphic testimony. A lot of it seemed to speak to force or compulsion. Talk to me about what you heard from witnesses.
Force, coercion, and forced labor. And the reason that's important is because of the racketeering charges, or specifically racketeering conspiracy. And one of the theories of the government that they have in their indictment is that one of the purposes of Combs's illegal enterprise was forced labor. So the testimony about working around the clock, not being allowed to sleep, being told where to go and where not to go, that all goes toward the forced labor. And then, of course, the violence goes to, as you said, coercion. All of these are parts of the sex trafficking. The coercion is a magic word that applies to sex trafficking. But when you hear about other crimes, arson, violence, usually those will dovetail into the racketeering charges.
But again, and I know you've talked about it, Danny, these are folks who jurors have to be convinced felt they had no choice. Some are saying, well, couldn't they have left? And I know they had a psychologist testify to that, but this is what the defense would try to point out, I'd imagine.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The government had a psychologist to testify about domestic violence and romantic relationships. I was there. She may have testified. I don't recall her testifying about workplace relationships, about people being unable to leave their bosses, more like unable to leave boyfriends and husbands. But, you know, you have to wonder, in today's modern era, does the jury look at someone who felt they couldn't leave this horrible boss as a similar arrangement? Or are some of those jurors going to say, listen, it's not like you lived with him. This was a job.
They did live with him.
Another job. There is a very real possibility that the jurors could go either way.
All right. Now, it closed out with some emotional testimony from Mia, a pseudonym for someone who worked with them. Talk about the impact potentially on a jury, and then how a jury discerns between the emotion and the domestic violence and to the issues that the prosecution is trying to make.
Yeah, emotion is another thing that can go both ways. If the jury decides that you're overly emotional, that maybe you're too precious, they may find that you're not credible. On the other hand, emotion, if it comes across as believable and appropriate, that's the key. Is it appropriate for the circumstance? Then the jury may conclude that this is a credible witness. But, you know, all week we heard about how that the cross-examination might have been too hard on some of these witnesses. And to that I say, probably true, but this is a criminal trial. I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I'm biased. Forgive me. But this is another defendant who's essentially on trial for his life. So you got to explore credibility, and it's never easy to do it with victims of violence or victims of sexual violence, but you have to.
And I wanted to ask you, because I know you've dealt with this in the aggressive cross-examination of Mia, they pointed to some social media posts.
Yes.
And that's something that is a part of contemporary life now, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, look, every lawyer warns their client, be careful what you put on social media. And sure enough, it comes back to haunt witnesses. And in this case, the defense cross-examined for hours the witness about her favorable social media posts about Combs. And that tends to show a lack of credibility. How can you say he was this horrible if you came back to him time and time again? By the way, it doesn't go so much to consent, because you can't consent to violent crimes. Right. However, it does go to credibility, and credibility is always an issue that you have to explore.
All right, Danny Savalas, we need you to come back and make sense.
I'll be here.
One more, y'all.
The wrenching testimony continues as we watch the Combs entertainment empire crumble under the weight of the allegations. We thank you for watching the case of Sean Diddy Combs. Until
Is this one it? Oh, no, that's the Punisher guy.
I like them because I love
Hold
my
on.
mom.
Secrets.
That's not it.
Versus Sean Diddy Combs. We heard testimonies from former assistants, one who alleges he sexually assaulted her multiple times, a stylist, the LAPD, and LAFD. But there's also some happier news this week. Diddy's ex and the prosecution's principal witness, Cassie Ventura, and her husband, Alex Fine, welcomed their third child 2 weeks after she testified. But we're here to talk about the trial, and y'all know I've got questions. Joining me to connect the dots and break down what this week means in Diddy's courtroom saga is entertainment lawyer, former litigator, and legal correspondent Lisa Bonner. Lisa, how you doing?
I'm well, Carlos. How are you?
Hey, Lisa. Hey, Carlos.
I'm ready to break all of this down, you know? So,
Lots
Lisa,
to break down.
A lot. Another explosive week. So, Lisa, we know Diddy is deviant and violent. He's been established as a monster. But that's not what he's on trial for. And, you know, I'm probably going to ask you this question every week because we want to keep people on track. Remind us why he's facing life in prison. What are the charges?
He has 5 counts against him. They are RICO.
5.
RICO includes multiple acts of arson, the kidnapping, possession of narcotics with the intent to distribute. He's got a lot of predicate crimes that underlie a RICO, but also the RICO makes it come into effect through the fact that he is using his company and people that work for him in furtherance of these crimes, as sex trafficking is principal, which is why I wanted to go last, because we've got a lot of that to talk about and how these crimes tie into the alleged sex trafficking. But sex trafficking is a part of the RICO charge as well. Diddy also has a count of transportation for the purposes of prostitution, and also has another separate sex trafficking charge. So there are a lot of charges that are 5 in total, but they are broken down into a RICO charge and the 2 other, the sex trafficking and the transportation for the purposes of prostitution, like I said. So it's a lot, and it is admittedly very confusing, and that's why I'm so glad we're here to talk about it and break it down from a legal perspective.
Right. Well, let's discuss let's talk about who we heard from this week and what this could all mean for Diddy's fate. So starting with his former assistant, who was anonymous. She went by the pseudonym Mia. So she testified on Thursday and Friday. Talk to me. What does she have to say about her former boss, and why is her testimony crucial to this case?
That's a great question, Carlos. So talking about Mia, who is testifying under pseudonym, but also as victim number 2 in the indictment. And her testimony is key for several reasons. One, it corroborates a lot of the control element that we've heard from Cassie about in terms of the sex trafficking of Cassie, which was very important. Basically, she testified that Diddy was in control of everything in her life, and from her apartment to her music, to her nails, to every literally thing in her orbit. So she talked about that. She corroborated the fact that Cassie was not free to leave, that he had threatened her through his withholding of her music, threatening to send sex tapes of the freak off to her parents. So she was very key in that, in corroborating Cassie's part of the sex trafficking as far as a control element. She was also very central to the case in fleshing out the narrative, another narrative under the RICO charge, which is the possession of narcotics with the intent to distribute. So she talked about the ketamine and how Diddy forced her to do ketamine in Miami. So that was a very crucial element as well. And now she is starting to also testify on Thursday about her being trafficked in terms of, and it's clear that we human trafficking and sex trafficking are all somehow a lot of times conflated, but sex trafficking is moving someone across, it could be across the street
I don't think
to another
Miami
environment
going.
for the purposes of unwanted sex or sex with a commercial worker. So that's very important. So in her instance, she tied together another element of that she was sexually abused in various places, which feeds into victim number 2 being sex trafficked. So she was crucial in so many ways.
On December 14th, 2012,
Buddy
my
boy, who
7-year-old
said
son, Daniel,
Young Miami was
shot to
going?
death in-
I
Being
don't think.
sex trafficked. So she was crucial in so many ways.
Okay. Well, earlier in the week, we heard from another assistant, Capricorn Clark. She testified, and she worked for him for many years. And Capricorn, she painted a picture of a mob-like boss who would often threaten to kill her. And she's also the one whom Kid Cudi said admitted Diddy broke into his house when he took the stand last week. What did you make of her testimony, and what does it mean for the racketeering charges he's facing?
Great question. Well, a lot of the assistants, and that's another thing, have worked, as did Capricorn, for him for a very long time. Capricorn, like Mia, and like the former ones that we saw last week, George and the other assistant, they all talked about an element of allegiance to him. So that is important in terms of establishing her credibility. Like, she really wanted to please him. But she also talked about, as you mentioned, the fact that Diddy and his people were there at the scene of the alleged crime of the breaking and entering into Kid Cudi's house. Very important. She was another reason that she was very important and central to the testimony was because she talked about the fact that she really was friends with both of them, and how she did not appear to have anything to gain in terms of testifying one way or the other. It came
You mean
across as
both
very
friends
truthful.
with Cassie and Diddy?
Cassie, yes,
Okay.
Cassie and Diddy. She was friendly with both of them. Again, she was there basically to talk about her element of what happened to Cassie, but from a neutral point of view. She also talked about, the forced labor, which is another predicate crime under RICO, as did Mia, and as did George Kaplan, and everyone who has talked about it, from working with Diddy, has talked about working to the point of exhaustion, which is a predicate crime under RICO. So there are a lot of different elements from each different witness, but they are all feeding into various narratives. But the one thing that we've pretty much seen consistent is the element of control that Diddy had over Cassie. Each person is alleging that in their own way, and also corroborating a lot of the stories that we've heard from the previous witnesses.
Okay, so we also heard from the stylist, Deontay Nash. He took the stand and he corroborated that Diddy was emotionally and physically abusive to Cassie. Now, the defense is trying to poke holes in all of their stories. That's their job. That's what they're there to do. And it seems like their strategy is to paint them as hanger-ons who kind of craved access to Diddy's celebrity and fame. Do you think it's been an effective strategy? And would you say the defense has had a rocky week? Well, let's go back. Do you think it's been an effective strategy first?
Well, it's a strategy, and it depends on how the jury is going to perceive
Thank you,
a lot of
JR.
this, right? And they are doing the best that they can, as I've said, with what they have. Listen, everybody knows Diddy. This is one of the trials that is talked about across the world. So any reasonable person would know that this is a man who is larger than life, who makes or breaks careers. I mean, we talked about Mary J. Blige. I mean, the roster goes on and on. Biggie, everybody. So, of course you wanted to be with Puffy, but aside from that, the important element that we are discussing here is the abuse and the emotional and financial manipulation that he extorted, that he held over these people. And so it is very complex. It really is going to go, as I've said before, a lot is going to lead into the jury instructions and the closing arguments in particular to see how they wrap all of this up and the other people that they bring in. They're doing the best they can, but you have to, would a reasonable person, that is the standard that they are supposed to take, would a reasonable person really believe that what these people are saying is true? And that is why it is so important for the prosecution to have a substantial narrative that is similar throughout all of these plaintiffs to establish a pattern of activity that is used through his enterprise. So, of course, he had great parties. That was part of the Puffy Bad Boy brand. But that same brand was also responsible for allegedly kidnapping one of his employees, taking her at gunpoint, and driving up to Kid Cudi's house to commit another crime, which is breaking and entering. That's the narrative that the prosecution has to go with. It's very important to underscore and to humanize and take. Would a reasonable person really believe that what these people are saying is true? And that is why it is so important for the prosecution to have a substantial narrative that is similar throughout all of these plaintiffs to establish a pattern of activity that is used through his enterprise. So, of course, he had great parties. That was part of the Puffy Bad Boy brand. But that same brand was also responsible for allegedly kidnapping one of his employees, taking her at gunpoint, and driving up to Kid Cudi's house to commit another crime, which is breaking and entering. That's the narrative that the prosecution has to go with. It's very important to underscore and to humanize and to put it into perspective for the jury so they could, if they want to get to proving that RICO.
Right. Well, let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the week that they've had. You know, they're begging the judge for more time with Diddy, and midweek, the judge denied their motion for a mistrial. What caused them to request a mistrial, and how do you think that played out with the jury?
Well, that is a question that is talked about this week, and it is very dramatic, and it did unfold in very dramatic testimony from what I can understand. So what led up to that was the Los Angeles investigator for the Los Angeles Fire Department. He was on the stand and basically was corroborating a lot of the arson and talked about the fingerprints and that caught that at Kid Cudi's house, and talked about the arson, that they normally keep a set of fingerprint cards on file, and he would be the one to sign off on them if they were to be destroyed. In this instance, they were destroyed, but he did not sign off on them. So the inference immediately is, according to the defense, is like, listen, the inference that you're drawing is the fact that Combs is larger than life, and he somehow paid these people, and people were in his pocket to help commit crimes when you don't really have any evidence of that. And so they not only asked for a mistrial, they also asked for that to be stated as that was improper in the record. The judge denied both. And the reason why it is important that the judge denied the mistrial is because they want to preserve every element and possibility for appeal that they can. But also the judge refused to strike it as improper from the record because of the fact that then underscores from the prosecution side that they somehow acted improper as an even greater grounds for appeal. So the judge admonished them and told them they were walking a fine line, but did not grant a mistrial, in my opinion, which is right. But it is a slippery slope, and you have to be very careful. And they were admonished properly, in my opinion, through the judge for what the judge did.
Right. We heard more about, the aftermath of the freak-offs and, the hotel rooms and how they were covered in menstrual blood and candle wax and broken glass. We got that picture. Why are these details important?
Again, the people that worked for Diddy that have testified, aside from Cassie, that was important for her to establish what it looked like, right, to set the scene. In terms of the candle wax and the incense and all of the things in the aftermath that they had to clean up, is because one of the elements of the enterprise is that he used his employees to protect his reputation and conceal his conduct. And that is one of the things that each and every assistant testified to, that it was my responsibility to protect him at all times. And again, these are Combs' employees of these enterprises and of these companies. So that is important to really weave that narrative in terms of the fact that they were there to protect him. Now, it was interesting that Mia actually had a checklist that she prepared, because Diddy one time was berating her about, what do you do all day? And she was like, well, let me tell you. So she had an email which was very effective. And in that email, it said, protect your his reputation at all time. Protect PD's reputation. And just very clear the fact that she was there to manage him, to keep his reputation clean, and to make sure that he appeared in the best light possible. So that's a string that goes through the RICO in the trafficking.
Okay. Did you find, was there any bombshell or smoking gun this week for the prosecution?
I would say Mia was super effective. I think the prosecution had a good week, but the bombshell, I would say, was Mia. Because Mia was a very reluctant witness. Okay. She said, I would have taken the secret to my grave. I did not want to talk about this. I did not have any interest, even when I approached.
But what are you saying? You didn't speak coming in, though.
Ever mentioned this.
I mean, first of all, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then you didn't even speak coming in. You just came in with a statement. And it meant nothing. We didn't even know who you was talking about. What you was trying to say. You didn't speak. And what facts you ain't said nothing? What do you mean? What do you mean? So you just talking. So I'm going to go ahead and remove you since you did not answer. And you still trying to make a statement and you still ain't saying shit. Bye. If you don't feel like I'm for the people, then go somewhere else. What you mean?
That was important because she
go ahead
really
and remove yourself so I won't have to remove you.
She was there. She was crying. She was emotional.
You
she
ain't
was
said no
had
facts.
her head down.
You
she
ain't
testified
said
under a pseudonym. And even in the court reports, they said the most prominent thing about her is the part in her hair, because she is very shrunken into herself and does not
come back
want
another
to
day.
really be there. She said, but I was subpoenaed. I have to be here. And I have to tell the story. I am traumatized. She said, I mean, it gives her PTSD. So I think that plays into the narrative from a jury perspective of really seeing that this girl has nothing to gain and everything to lose if somebody pieces the parts together of the puzzle. This is a very small business in the entertainment industry. So you do a little digging and one could easily find out who that is. And that is very dangerous for her reputation, and nobody would want to be famous or infamous for any of these allegations that she has set forth. So she was very, very damaging and very effective. So I think that was the most bombshell. I don't even know why you keep coming over here. All of it was really, this was a good week for the prosecution in terms of building out the elements of RICO. As I have said before, that's what they need to do. There's still more to go, but they are really building an effective case.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. I mean, you said they had a good week, so you kind of answered it. But in your legal opinion, at this stage, how are they doing? How is the prosecution doing, proving that Combs ran a criminal enterprise?
I think that they are connecting the dots.
Thank you.
They have started laying out the predicate crimes of RICO. We had breaking and entering, we had arson, we had kidnapping, we have elements of control that feed into the sex trafficking. Those were corroborated. We had bribery, extortion, ketamine, concealing conduct. We had everything to establish a pattern of behavior that was conducted through his business that was that alleged a criminal enterprise. So I think they have done a lot. If they had to rest today, would they be there? I think not. But I do know that they have at least 2 more weeks of testimony, and they have some work to do to close the loop. But if they bring in KK, his former chief of staff,
music artist,
and they bring in D-Rock, each of whom has been mentioned, D-Rock and the security guard, each of whom has been mentioned 3 or 4 dozen times in this throughout the trial of these past 3 weeks. These are people that were not assistants and working under him, but people who allegedly worked with him. As the chief of staff, Christina did everything that and knew of these crimes and alleged crimes and continued to chime in to further it. If they bring her in and she can establish that she was following orders and same with D-Rock, the security guard, and they were employed by Combs, that would bring it home and land the plane. Other than that, because these 2 people are mentioned so frequently, if they don't come in, that's kind of like, Now they might have to cut a deal, grant some immunity or otherwise, but they need those 2 higher ups to come in to really.
I had my husband take a photo
Higher
for me and show me my results, and literally
those 2 higher ups to come in to really to hit it home.
Right. So I mean, the trial is expected to last 8 weeks, and we're hitting the halfway mark. What can we expect next week?
Next week, allegedly, there's going to be another victim that comes forward again, which will show a pattern of behavior from Combs. So we'll see what she testifies about. But if it's a 3rd victim that comes forth and talks about the sex trafficking and corroborates the same narrative that we've heard over and over and over again about the control, about the abuse, about the manipulation, about the other criminal elements that come into RICO, especially if this person was affiliated, this alleged victim was affiliated with him in any way in terms of his businesses, that's going to be another way to really hit it home. And so we could look forward to that. And like I said, we need higher ups, that people that have been mentioned previously in these lawsuits. Again, I would suspect and hope that the prosecution would bring in the security guard and his former chief of staff to corroborate
KK and
what each person has testified to about these
Big
people
D.
knew. They came, Christina
Bring
was
in
sending emails stating
Barnes.
that you had to come back. She was calling incessantly at Diddy's request, that the security guard was either with Diddy in terms of the kidnapping or was one of the people that did something to go and retrieve Cassie. There's so many instances of these alleged higher up individuals that were working with him to facilitate and conspire with him under his employ. That is going to be something that we're going to need to see.
All right, my friend,
He outta here.
Lisa Bonner, thank you.
Okay, I got one more for sure, and I'm out. One more. I want to see what happened in the courtroom with these content creators down there acting a FOOL, clout chasing. That's probably who I just put out, one of his accounts. Probably. I need to go on and remove that person, period. Come on.
Gene Deal, happy to have you back, my man. Week 3,
Hey,
Diddy trial.
Gene.
Gotta talk about it, man. I heard you and some dude got into an altercation up there. Like, what's the backstory behind that before we
He a
get into
clown.
the videos?
I wouldn't call it an altercation, you know what I'm saying? Because that means somebody is capable of challenging you on your level.
He a
What happened
clown.
is that you get these YouTubers, you know what I'm
Thirsty.
saying, want to make contact with you by
Facts.
yelling, screaming, and hollering and thinking that you got to answer their questions. And they talking to a grown-ass man like he's some kind of child or hollering at some kind of animal. See, I come to that court
That's who
because
that
I'm
guy
trying to see
was,
this
probably,
thing
that
through.
was just in
I
here
don't care what nobody say.
making a
I'm the
statement
one
and didn't make
who
sense. He
initiated
makes,
this whole
let's be
thing.
clear. If that was who that was, that DK Production Uncut mess, he a clown. That's why he didn't make sense. He didn't make sense over here. And he didn't make sense why he was out there.
You get these YouTubers, you know what I'm saying,
Clout chasing.
who want to make contact with you by yelling, screaming, and hollering and thinking that you got to answer their questions. And they talking to a grown-ass man like he's some kind of child or hollering at some kind of animal. See, I come to that court because I'm trying to see this thing through. You know, I don't care what nobody say. I'm the one who initiated this whole thing and started talking about this dude's behavior, his attitude, how he was treating people, what he was doing, way before any of his employees, way before anything. I took all the ridicule, you know, from everybody. You know what I'm saying? If you was watching the internet when I first got on here, they was talking about, yo, this bum ass
Right, JR.
ex-bodyguard. I didn't have this and I didn't have that. I didn't do this and I didn't do that. But then when the facts started coming out that I was a New York State parole officer with my college degree, had my own house, own apartment, was given another house by my family, and they started seeing that I was one of the leaders and the founders of the same gang, which Puff came out of. You know, I helped and I started slicking the family. You know what I'm saying? All these are Harlem crews, and they start seeing that the real people that was in New York City was like, yo, Gene was the man. Gene is this. You know what I'm saying? And they was wondering why I got on the internet. But I was given something to do, man. I don't care what nobody say. So I go to that court to see it through. You understand? I go to that court to make sure that I'm going to see the people that I love who got hurt behind this dude, that we get justice. And I just want to be there to see it. I didn't come there for somebody to be calling me out my name, talking all that, you know,
Stupid
saying
stuff.
things that's irate. Yo, listen here, I'm a grown-ass man. I raised 3 girls to be adults. I raised somebody else's sons to be adult men. You understand what I'm saying? So that makes me grown. I've raised people to be adults. I've helped people with their kids for them to become adults. So I'm a grown-ass man, and I don't need nobody, anybody. You just can't talk to me any kind of way or say whatever you want to say. Because then when we see each other, then express yourself as a man. So here this dude hollering, saying, call all kind of epithets, saying all kind of belligerent curse words, saying all kind of shit to me. And I'm like this. I'm like, yo, I played it cool when we was outside. Then when we got into the court, it was a whole different situation. You understand? It was a whole different situation. I went to him, I said, yo, bro, you had a lot of stuff to say outside. You understand? Yo, I got a lot of stuff to say now. That's what he said. I said, oh, what you got to say then? He said, yo, you got questions to answer. And for who? I said, if you want me to answer questions, do an interview. I got a booking number, then you do an interview. I answer any of your questions. I ain't got no problem of answering anything that you want to know.
But pay me.
All you got to do is pay my fee, and I'll be there. He said, well, you ain't going to tell me how to get the contact. And as soon as he said that, and he came like he was coming close to me, I took it back to 92.
Did you put him out? They say you knocked him out.
Protect your neck. And that's all I'm going to say.
They say he knocked him.
I took it back to 1992 Wu-Tang.
You put the
You know what I'm talking about. Then when I did that, the next thing you know,
You mean you put them You put them hands on him, Gene. I thought that was a story. I thought they made that up. I didn't run with it. Because I saw the outside part. I didn't see, you know, you can't see what's going on inside. So since Gene didn't say nothing, I just went with what was going on the outside. But I didn't know Gene. I need this hand. This is my hand right here. I didn't know that Gene put that with the long reach, cause I done seen his stance. I done seen them hands. I done seen, you know, I done seen him playing with the old OG. You know, I done seen it. You know, some things I recognize. I didn't know he put them filth war bead hands on him. Woo! Go, Gene. Go, Gene. Go, Gene. So now he know why you was a bodyguard. He got a treatment. Well, tell him don't be sending his trolls over here, cause AunTeaFee gonna peep it. And she gonna shut that shit down. It just so happened that once I thought about it, hell, his initial does start with a D, don't it? He had a flashback. What? AunTeaFee, what? Woo, baby, that attitude get ugly. Boy, you better stop playing with folk, especially OGs, grown folk, understanding be sub-zero with that foolishness. I could have told you that. That's what you should have came over here saying. But you know, you and that other chick that people try to force down my throat, y'all want to have problems with people who we like. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care how long you been a content creator. You new to us. Yeah. Whoop that ass. Whoop that ass. Whoop that ass. Whoop that ass. You tell your mama to turn her camera off. You don't run nothing over here.
He hit me. That's what he said to the guard.
He hit me.
I took it back. I got a booking number. Then you do interview. I answer any of your questions. I ain't got no problem of answering anything that you want to know. All you got to do is...
Don't send your ugly ass friends over here to be mad at me.
You ain't going to tell me how to get
You don't like it? Don't come over here.
And he came like he was coming close to me. I took it back to 92. Wu-Tang. Protect your neck. And that's all I'm going to say. I took it back to that. I took it back to 1992 Wu-Tang. Protect your neck. And he know what I'm talking about. Then when I did that, then next thing you know, a girl came, the guards started coming and stuff like that. And he told the guards, yo, watch the camera. He hit me. That's what he said to the guard. So one guard was like this. One guard got in front of me and I moved. He said, yo, Gene. He said, yo, Gene, because he know me. He said, yo, Gene, you could just knock me down, bro. Just take a couple of days and get up out of here. And so I was leaving. So he ran and got his camera. And then somebody called my name. He called my name like that. I turned around and I just said to him, I said, yo, bro, I'm not that dude that you could just run up on. I'm not that dude that you could say whatever you want to say. I'm a grown-ass man. You understand? I'm not that dude that you could say whatever you want to say to, because if you run up on me, I'm going to knock you the F out. And that's how that went, bro. And there's nothing I'm proud of. You understand? But you don't talk to
I'm
grown
proud
men.
of
I don't
it
care
for you.
What kind of YouTube
They need
show
to
you
play
got.
with
I
they
don't care
play with
what kind
themselves.
You want to go viral, you want to do this and you want to do that.
Play with
you conduct
themselves.
yourself as a gentleman. You want to call yourself a reporter. You don't see
Play
all
with
the reporters who
yourself.
went to school.
Do the
You don't
Diddy
see
with
all
your
the
strong
reporters who got
hand.
their degrees,
I don't
who
troll
got,
over here. I done
worked up
told
the
you we
ladder
don't
to
troll over
become
here.
Who they are. Yelling and
So
screaming
bye.
and cursing and saying all kind of crazy shit to people. You don't see that. But if that's what you choose to do,
I just
you choose
reported
to do that,
you for
bro.
not
But I'm not the
following
one
my
you gonna do that
guidelines.
to,
I don't
and
troll
then
over here.
think it's gonna be all right to
Bye.
get on the elevator with me. I don't care where we at. I don't care where
Yeah,
we
go
at,
play with
what
yourself
we
with
gotta
your strong
do, we gonna
hand.
get it in. And I'm too grown and too old for
Bye.
that. But you're not gonna talk to me any kind of way, and you ain't gonna say whatever you want to say to me, bro. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna
Go
disrespect
play
me
with
as a
yourself
man
with your
and
strongest
think it's all right
hand.
to do that because you
Bye.
got a YouTube show, because you want to go viral, you want to do like that. You be ending up.
With your strong hand. Okay.
I want to go to the next subject, man. Let's go to the next one. And all kind of
They
that
say
dude that you could just run up on. I'm not that dude that you could say whatever you want to say. I'm a grown ass man. You understand? I'm not that dude that you can say whatever you want to say to. Because if you run up on
you
me,
played
I'm gonna
yourself.
knock you the F out. And that's how that went, bro. And there's nothing I'm proud of. You understand? But you don't talk
I'm
to
proud
grown
of
men.
you.
I don't care what kind of YouTube show you got. I don't care what kind of, you want to go viral, you want to do this and you want to do that. You conduct yourself as a gentleman. You want to call yourself a reporter. You don't see all the reporters who went to school. You don't see all the reporters who got their degrees, who got, you know, who worked up the ladder to become who they are. Yelling and screaming and cursing and saying all kind of crazy shit to people. You don't see that. But if that's what you choose to do, you choose to do that, bro. But I'm not the one you gonna do that to and then think it's gonna be all right to get on the elevator with me. I don't care where we at. I don't care where we at, what we gotta do, we gonna get it in. And I'm too grown and too old for that. But you're not gonna talk to me any kind of way. And you ain't gonna say whatever you wanna say to me, bro. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna disrespect me as a man and think it's all right to do that because you got a YouTube show, because you want to go viral, you want to do like that, you be ending up. I want to go to the next subject, man. Let's go to the next one, bro, because this is going to go somewhere that it shouldn't even go, bro, on a for real, for real. We all too grown for this shit, bro. But I'm not to be disrespected, and I'm not going to disrespect nobody else. You feel me?
Right.
Yeah, but before we move on, man, let me just add one more thing to this. When Miss Wallace asked me to get on Nick Bloomfield documentary, I got on Nick Bloomfield documentary. That was like in 99, somewhere around there. I got an A&E documentary, 2001. I got on VH1, MTV. All these was in the early 2000s before there was even a YouTube telling the story. You understand? I sat down with each one of those crews about anywhere from 3 to 5 hours telling them everything. Telling them everything. That's why can't nothing come up. When I was talking about how, what Puff said about Suge, Pac, Big, everything. I told them everything. This stuff has been on, and I've been saying the same story since 99. I've been saying the same story since 97 when Miss Wallace set me in her living room. I ain't changed nothing, and I ain't gonna change nothing. You understand? There's certain things that you find out as we go, because you know my motto. Facts.
Get paid to be real. Apply for InFocus.
I didn't know what to expect going in.
Will change your feelings, but feelings can't change your facts. That's my motto, bro. So it's over the years, I found out some more stuff and some other things for professional people. People like myself that's higher than me, FBI agents. People who've been working on the case. You find out other things and you go on with that. But to all these little young YouTubers and everything like that, you know, it's a couple of those guys who've been respectable. Now, I'm going to pull them to the side because I'm going back down there. Don't think that I'm not going to be going down there, bro. I'm going back down there. You understand?
You understand?
So now,
you understand?
Some of those YouTubers that's been respectable.
You understand?
You understand? I might like, yo, you can give me a question, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'll give you one question. You understand? Because they was respectable when I come down there, they respectable. Now, people think I'm hiding. I'm not hiding, bro. You understand? I'm not hiding from nothing. These people don't do their due diligence, bro. When they come out here and they want to do a show, they don't do their due diligence. They'll let anybody come on their platform that's got a salacious story about anybody and say, oh, they told me. That don't mean a god thing, bro. Because somebody told you some bullshit. That don't mean nothing, bro. Do your due diligence if you want to have a successful channel. But if you just want to go viral, remember, you got to protect your neck. And I'm gonna give you something right now, because I don't want people to go and look at what they want to say because this dude want to go viral and stuff like that. I can bet any money. Gene Deal and Diddy never stayed at the Intercontinental in Atlanta. Never. We stayed at the Swiss Hotel. Do you hear what I'm saying? We never stayed at the Intercontinental in Atlanta. That's why I knew this shit was bogus. We always stayed at the Swiss. So they fed him a bunch of bowl of You will not find a and he ran with it or any kind of card because you got to put your card up for room for your incidentals in your rooms. You will never find no card at the Intercontinental with Gene Deal name on there. None of that. Because I don't care whoever you travel with or whatever you did, they could be paying for the hotel. You always had to put a card up for your incidentals to your room. He played himself. And we never stayed at the Intercontinental. So he played himself, Gene. That's what they told me to play. That's what they told me to exit out on. That clown over there and that clown over here. They played themselves.
You're loyal. You're grateful. I appreciate that. Go buy your mama a house. Go buy your whole family houses.
Is this it?
This money in your savings account.
Is this it?
Go spend
Danger.
some money for no reason.
Nah, that ain't it. That ain't it. Hold on. That ain't it. Nope. They coming over here showing their little hand. The weak one. He went up on Gene and Gene laid that ass out.
In the intro, verse, you know what I'm saying? Change the music right here, put the bridge right there. Rip the fucking door off. Rip it off his hinges and put the hinges in the fuckboy's hands. Like that.
What does that mean? You break through the door, you break through the ceiling.
You rip the door off.
Is this what you're talking
The
about?
one that's trying to stop you.
Get through
You rip the door off. Take the hinges, because you don't want them to put the door back on. Take the hinges and put the hinges in the fuckboy's hands.
But then if you give him the hinges, couldn't that now the power is in the fuckboy's hands? Like, can they put those hinges back on the frame?
It's called congratulations, you played yourself.
Who are fuckboys? What makes somebody a fuckboy?
I mean, it's just a better word for hater. Mad people.
This gotta be it, because he a fuckboy. You played yourself.
Like a piece of shit.
You called this album an uppercut and a knockout.
Yeah.
And I always wonder when you say these things, who are you fighting? When you call this a victory, who did you defeat?
The fuckboys. I'm supposed to eat the wing now? Everything they don't have, I had. It's called jealousy, one's envy. It's called fuckboy. Another one. You want my advice? Don't play yourself.
Don't play yourself.
They cannot do what I do. I'm the best that ever did it. One of the biggest producers, DJs, moguls, executives in the game.
Okay, y'all, I'll be back later.
Never play yourself.
Yeah. Cause Gene gonna put them hands on you.
Yes. Do you know the shit I go through? I risk my life every day.
Cause Gene Deal's gonna put them hands on you. Knock that ass out. Knock that ass out. Say what? Knock that ass out. Knock that ass out. Knock that ass out. Boo, y'all hit the like button. I'll be back a little later. He knocked that ass out. In the courtroom, knocked that ass out. Stay from over here. Stay, all that disrespect for clout. Stay from over here. Cause I'm gonna tell Uncle Gene. Cause he going back. He going back.